Welcome to the CATFIVE Boys podcast. I am your host, Matt, and I'm here with two special guests for a very special edition of the CATFIVE Boys show. But before we get started with that, first and foremost, welcome to the CATFIVE Boys podcast. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your time listening to the show, listening to me talk, and listening to this very special first edition of CATFIVE Boys Debates. Hopefully it's a good one. Again, we appreciate you guys spending your time with us here. Disclaimer, the views expressed on the show by the individual guests and or hosts do not necessarily reflect the views of the CATFIVE Boys podcast. Further disclaimer, the topics that we talk about sometimes can get a little bit deep, can get a little bit dark, a little bit sensitive. If that's not your thing, then this might not be the show for you. We have clips. If you would like to get a couple of the best bits of each episode, obviously not all of them, because then what would be the point of the shows, then feel free to check out our TikTok account, our YouTube. We post clips on YouTube as well, and we also post clips on Instagram. So if you guys want to check those out, feel free to check them out. All of them are at CATFIVE Boys. Again, if you can't catch the full shows, we have clips that we post. I'm trying to get into the habit of posting more and more often and everything like that. So so we have TikTok right here, we got YouTube and Instagram. And just to kind of segue into the next thing, if you guys would like to be a guest on the show, we would love to have you on, whatever it is you would like to talk about. Maybe you have disagreements with me, maybe you have disagreements with Maddie or some other guests that we've had on the show in the past. Like, for example, here we had Stephanie on the show a couple of weeks back, and Aubrey listened to the episode. He had a couple of disagreements with her. He was interested in debating, and we set it up. So if you guys would like to maybe debate somebody who's been on the show, maybe you want to debate me on the fact that I don't think women should vote, or Maddie on how he's a simp, who knows. If you would like to do that, just send us a DM on Instagram. Even if you would like to just have a conversation about something cool that's happening in your life, something you're interested in, we would love to talk about it with you. If you guys would like, DM us on Instagram at CAT5Boys, letting us know you're interested, giving us a little bit of a bio of yourself, and we'll coordinate with you and get you on the show as soon as possible. I stream every single Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. At least I try to. I did try last week to stream. The Wi-Fi was very choppy, so didn't catch it fully, unfortunately. But I did, get a little bit of a stream there going. At least the audio was good, at the very least. I went on TikTok and we went on some lives and we debated some people. We debated about transgenderism, which, funny enough, is kind of the topics we have today. But I'll save that for a little later. But anyways, the stream was very entertaining. It was very fun. So if you guys want to hop on that, and the next time I do it is it's every single Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. If you guys want to talk shit on me live, maybe you want to throw some love live on air, which either or would be amazing. You guys can catch me there. The links to all that will be in the description down below. So a new thing that I'm kind of adding to every single show that I'm kind of talking about is a store that I'm running with some of my family members and obviously Maddie. We're going to add more things to the store soon. But if you guys are interested, me personally, I'm a very devout Catholic, and one of the aspects of my devotion to my faith is my devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. And one of the weapons that she provides to us, that she gives us, is the Most Holy Rosary. We have several handmade quality rosaries that we sell on the store. If you guys are interested in that, this is just one of the items that we have in right now. This is just one of the items that we have in right now. It's a single decade rosary. It's a work in progress. We're adding more things as we go along. There's two different colors to it. You got the black one, which is the meteor rock or the lava rock, and then you have the wood. If you guys are interested in that, feel free to go check out the store. We're going to add more things as we go along. Right now we're in the infancy stages of the store. We're going to add some shirts as well with the CAT5 Boys logo. It's going to be great. But for now, we have the single decade rosaries, and we're adding a couple more rosaries as we go along. So if you guys are interested in that, maybe you're also Catholic, maybe you have a friend or a family member who's Catholic, you get this to them for a gift. Again, be greatly appreciated. Again, I don't expect that anybody gets anything, but check out the store, see if, look around, and it'd be greatly appreciated either way. With that being said, make sure to like, make sure to comment, make sure to subscribe on YouTube. and drop us 5 stars on TikTok, or sorry, on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Make sure to drop comments. We love the comments, likes, subscribes, all the good stuff. With that being said, and without further ado, let's get right into the debates. So we have two very special guests today who are facing each other in this debate. We're going to have three debate prompts that we're going to be touching on today. Those are as follows. Should trans women be allowed to participate in women's sports? Should society promote gender ideology? And should women be allowed to fight in the front lines of military combat? With that being said, let's get the introductions going for our two very special guests. Let's start with Stephanie. Ladies first. We'll start with you. Give us a little bit of an introduction of yourself, your name, your age, your location, occupation, and anything that you're that's going on in your life. You know, a little bit of a bio.
Yeah, hey, thanks for having me on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm looking forward to it. My name is Stephanie. I am a From Dirt We Grow podcaster. And I am 44 years old, about to be 45 next month. I am from Wisconsin, and I am a military veteran. So I'm happy to be here and say what I got to say.
Phenomenal. Great to have you on. Again, I appreciate you for coming on and being willing to do this debate. Aubrey, let's go with you. Name, age, location, occupation, and anything you got going on, man.
Sure. So my name is Aubrey. I'm 29 years old. Location. So originally from New York. I'm currently in Florida. And occupation. Few things. So I have been fitness adjacent, I would say. I've been in the fitness world in several different capacities over the last decade, and in the financial world in several different capacities over the last 5 or 6-ish years.
All right, awesome. So, kind of just to jump right into it, first and foremost, again, I kind of want to emphasize this. The very first debate that is being hosted by the Cat5 boys, I'm going to be the moderator for today's debate. Aubrey is going to be taking the negative on all these prompts, correct?
Correct.
All right, and obviously Stephanie will be taking the affirmative. So we're going to have some good back and forths, hopefully, just to kind of get the structure of how we're going to do this out of the way. It's going to be about 2 minutes to 3 minutes if need be. We'll start with 2 minutes, and then if need be, they'll have an extra minute of an opening statement for each of the prompts, and then afterwards we'll go into like a 30-minute. If there's still more to be discussed after the 30 minutes are over, we'll push it to 45 minutes of an open dialogue where they can go back and forth on their ideologies and their beliefs. And with that being said, let's get started. I think I got everything pretty much down packed. Let's get started with the very first prompt of the day. Should trans women be allowed to participate in women's sports? Let's start with, anybody have any preferences on who should start the opening statements?
No preference for me.
Yeah, no preference here either.
All right, cool. Stephanie, tell me heads or tails.
Heads.
All right, Stephanie, you start the opening statements. Go ahead.
All right, let me get this thing started on this very first debate on the Cat5 Boys show. This is awesome.
We appreciate,
All right,
again, sorry to interrupt. I'm already interrupting.
No.
I apologize very much. Thank you guys from the bottom of my heart. Yeah, right. From the bottom of my heart, from the bottom of the Cat5 Boys show heart. We appreciate you guys for coming on and being willing to do this debate. It's not easy to find people who are willing to get on a show and battle with their ideologies. So I appreciate it very much. Maddie also appreciates. I know he's not here. He's a little busy today, but we appreciate it very much. But with that being said, go ahead, Stephanie, with your opening statement.
Yeah, believe me, I know the struggle, Matt. I've been trying as well for my show. But
yeah, it's tough.
Getting into it. Yeah, I found you guys. So getting into it, women in sports, trans women in sports. Let me just start by saying that there's like many misconceptions for this topic throughout this topic, because we're not talking about we're talking about transgender women, period, like trans that have transitioned from man to woman. It's not about any other members of the LGBT plus community, not cross-dressers, not gay people or queens or queer identifying people. It's not these people that are not transitioned. These are the people that have gone through the surgery, that have gone through, the hormones and the therapy and all this that it is included in becoming a transgender person. And yes, this is possible. The surgeries, there are surgeries that give you the attributes of one or the other. So this is what it contains. This is what the whole argument is based on, is these people that have transitioned. So when you talk about transgender women, they are now women. So yes, they should be included in women's sports. And that's what I got on that.
All right, so you yield the rest of your time then? You still have like around 40 seconds left.
Yeah, yep.
All right,
I probably
wonderful.
won't take the whole time on all of them.
All right, wonderful. Aubrey, whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Sure. So just to start, just first, thank you for having us on the podcast. What I would say is in addressing this topic. So first, just to get a scope of what we're discussing. So it's 0.7% of the population is transgender. That's the highest percentage that I can find. Assuming that's correct. It's larger than I thought it'd be. There's actually many transgendered people. Referencing their mental health and their situation there, and I do want to give that some airtime because I do think it's so important to the dialogue, and I just want to say that my heart goes out to people who are suffering and are going through any type of mental health crisis. But from what I saw online, the research I've done, it said that 56% of transgendered youth have contemplated self-deletion, and 31% have attempted self-deletion. So these numbers, it goes without saying, this is incredibly high. This is something to look at, and I would say by and large, my goal from this conversation is really not to throw people-born women under the bus in assisting with people who are transgendered, because I think that that's where they're going to get a lot of pushback. And ultimately, I want to see everyone alive. I want to see everybody happy, and I want people to be able to transition freely if they choose to do that. And I don't want to throw women who were born women under the bus in that process. I think that if we allow transgendered women to compete with women in women's sports, I think that a lot of natural, or I should say, people born with, female, I guess with the female sex. I'm sorry, the language is a little bit tough here. But people born female are going to ultimately get thrown under the bus, and then in turn, everyone else is going to come to support that, and then we're going to find that many transgendered people aren't accepted. So I think all of us maybe share a goal that we want people to not commit self-harm, right? I think we both agree we don't want people to have self-harm, and I think the way to do that is by ultimately defending women as well.
All right, great. You have those were like 2 minutes exactly. So if you would like your extra minute, or actually no, because Stephanie didn't take it, so never mind. All right. So whenever you guys are ready, let's get started with the open dialogue. Go ahead.
All right. Well, then I'll start again since I started before. I'm just wondering, I'm kind of confused by your stance then. Do you feel like trans women should not be in sports, in
They should
women's
not be
sports?
in no, they should not be in women's sports. I think that the sexes are different. Just biologically, there are differences, and I think that if we allow people born male who transition to becoming women in female sports, I think the females are going to get run over, and ultimately, it's not good for anyone. It's not good for women, and it's not good for transgendered people.
So you feel like they should be in men's sports?
Well, personally, I think we could solve the whole problem by having an open league, right? So, for example, the NFL, they don't require that you be a man to enter the NFL. You could be a woman and try out for the NFL. You most likely won't get in. I don't think there's ever been a case really where I think there was one case where a woman who was a kicker almost got in, but yeah, I mean, I think men's leagues can be called open leagues, and you'll still have basically the same set of people in them. Um, but I think to put people who were born male with people who were born female is ultimately very dangerous for the females.
What about the females that have transgendered to female, aren't they in danger of being around born men?
They are, and we don't I'd say we don't see a lot of the danger in that side because most people who were born female and transition to becoming men, they aren't at the competitive level of professional men in those said sports. So, for example, we see like Leah Thomas won a division national championship in swimming.
Mm.
If she were to go participate in this sport with men, she would not rank anywhere in the Olympics. She wouldn't qualify for the Olympics, let alone um, win, right? And so we're not seeing the opposite, right? We're not seeing a whole lot of here are people born female wanting to compete in men's sports because they can't.
So you're on the same wavelength that women are just not as athletic abled as men, period, no matter what
Oh,
they
I
identify
would
as
say,
now.
I mean, at a high level, that's true, right? So at a low level, right? If I just walk down the street, I may find one man who's morbidly obese and couldn't touch his toes, and I can find a woman who can run a marathon in an astounding time, right? But when we're talking about athletics and we're talking about people competing in athletics, we are talking more about people in that top 10% category, I would say, for let's say even high school athletes, and then even a small selection when you talk about college athletes, even smaller than that when we talk about Division One athletes. And then we are talking about a very, very, very tiny subset of people when discussing professional athletes. Just so, for example, um, so I look at professional athletes because by and large, I don't think that really this conversation matters for average people. I think that, hey, look, I was never going to be a professional basketball player, and um, most women will never be professional basketball players either. But the fact of the matter is that many men could become professionals in female sports, but that's not happening in an alternative way. So it's not to say that no woman could be as strong as any man. It's just to say at the top 1%, no woman is as strong as any man, right? So the top 1% strong woman will never be as strong as the top 1% men. And I could discuss that more. I don't want to take up too much of your time, though.
Yeah, actually, that's a very different approach to this whole argument than what I'm familiar with as far as why transgender women should not be involved. I have been noticing that it's more about the safety of natural born women rather than the abilities of either men or women. So yeah, I'm not prepared in this case to handle, or not, I mean, I'm prepared to handle it. I'm just not. I didn't know it was going to be geared this topic to this argument. I guess I was more of leaning towards that it is unsafe for women to have
Okay.
transgender women in sports. Do you see what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
that's the most pushback that I've
No, let's
seen
discuss
from it.
that then. I'd like to discuss that then. Do you feel like it's not unsafe for women to have transgendered women participating with them?
I don't. I don't feel like most or very many at all transgender women are a threat to anybody. They just want to live their lives.
Well,
I
again,
mean, like
we're
you
not
said,
talking about just transgendered people in general, right? I'm not. I would say, as a woman, it's not that you should be afraid of a transgendered woman walking down the street, but there's many instances in sport where transgendered women competing with women are a danger to the women. I should say the women-born women.
because of their ability, you're saying, right? Not because like they want to go around raping people or oh shoot,
Oh
sorry.
no,
Can you cut
I'm
that
not
out?
trying to. Yeah, I'm not trying to demonize anybody and say I'm worried that the women are going to get raped in sport, right?
Oh, let's
I'm
use
sort of just.
let's use essay.
Oh, my
Sorry,
apologies.
yeah,
No, it's okay.
yeah.
It's no problem.
I did that.
I did it too.
Go ahead,
Sorry.
sorry.
Yeah, no, it's all
No,
good. Just use essay for the future.
I'm not.
Okay.
I'm not drawing saying that we should worry about the SA side at this moment, right? What I'm more saying is, like, for example, let's take Fallon Fox. Not sure if this name means anything to you, but Fallon Fox was a female MMA athlete. She competed against other women, not disclosing that she was born male at birth. She ended up fracturing the orbital bone of a female competitor, right? And had the woman born a woman known they were competing against someone who was born male, They could have made an informed decision about whether or not that was a risk they should be engaging in. I think additionally to that, the fact that she was born male and able to participate at a high level means that she also took the opportunity from someone who was born female for that role, right? And so in this case, it's two things. It's one, that opportunity was not offered to a young woman born a woman, and two, it resulted in essentially a broken orbital bone of her competitor, which is extremely dangerous. That's not something that she should have had to engage in.
Again, we're talking about the strength difference, I guess, between men and women, and not the safety issue that I feel like this debate revolves around. That this topic, in general, revolves around is the safety issue of women.
Just to kind of cut in a bit. No, it's all good. Just to kind of cut in a bit. Would you agree with him then when he says that they should not participate because of the difference in physical ability?
I guess I never looked at women as inferior in that regard, but statistics do say that that is the case. So I can't, I don't know. I guess like I said, I've never thought of that before. I don't think of it in that regard. I think of it as far as the safety issue that people are talking about, like with the bathroom issue and all of that, going transgender women.
So then, Aubrey, do you think that there is some merit to that argument that people have from the side of from your side, I suppose, when they say that?
So I would say there can be some merit, right? And I think this boils down to preference and what we have rights to and what we have access to, and the ability for others to make a choice in what they're participating in as well, right? I've always said that we could solve the transgender debate when it comes to bathrooms very simply. We have a door like in other countries that just says toilet, right? It's not male, it's not female, it's a toilet, right? You can be whatever you want on the toilet. The idea that transgendered people rape at a higher frequency, I'm sorry, SA at a higher frequency than the rest of the population, I'm not seeing that substantiated. I also don't necessarily think that saying, hey, if you're born this, you're not allowed here. Well, if a person was going to SA someone in a locker room or in a bathroom, they weren't going to follow the rules on what was printed on the door regardless, right? So if
Right.
any man can say, yeah, I'm a woman today, and SA someone in a girl's bathroom, right? But they're not going to be discouraged by the fact that it says girls only. If we make legislation saying you're not allowed in, what are we saying? That they're afraid to break that set of legislation, but they're not afraid to break the set of legislation that they SA somebody? So I don't necessarily think that again, I'm not really too gung ho on discriminating in this sort of way. But when it comes to sport, right, going back to that sort of side of it, there's just very clear difference in the physicality between the two genders and in the actual sport itself, right? Leaving aside the locker rooms and leaving aside the bathrooms. I just want people to be safe, right? I mean, I brought up Fallon Fox. That was one example. There was another example is Peyton McNabb, who had a concussive brain injury when a volleyball was spiked by a transgender athlete onto her head. I mentioned Leah Thomas. Um, and these examples, there's plenty more. I didn't have everyone listed. I don't have all of them by memory even. Um, but I'm worried that this is going to happen again and again, and I'm worried that that fact is going to be what causes discrimination against transgender people as a whole. And that's again with the with the self deletion rates being so high, I don't want to see that, right? I want to see that number as low as possible.
That's a fair point, and like I said, I never thought about that's something to definitely look into more. Like I said, I never really looked into that aspect of it because I was more concerned about where the rhetoric is going about the safety of, for essay purposes and all that, not for physicality, not looking at that point of it. But I do agree that definitely things should be more open and not gender biased, like you said, open football, open sports, open bathrooms. I mean, I think that's a good way to go. And even if people are not on the same ability levels, well, neither are everybody in the NFL already. If you're a man, they're not on the same physicality levels. So I feel like that's a good way to go with it.
Right, and I think even further to the bathrooms and the locker room arguments, right? The same idea if we could have, instead of it being called a men's room, could call it the open bathroom, right? Because at
Yeah.
the end of the day, I don't really mind if someone is dressed a certain type of way and they have certain private parts. I don't really, that doesn't put me in any danger in the men's bathroom, right? But we could
Right.
still reserve women's spaces for people born female to protect them. There's been a large language change over the last, let's say 10 years or 15 years, in what we call a woman, what we call a female, right? There's been these language changes
Mhm.
where people didn't really sign on for that when making the bathroom door, right? The bathroom door could be
Right.
100 years old, right? They weren't really signing on for how the language would shift. And so that's why I think you could solve the whole problem just by saying, this is the female bathroom. This is the open bathroom. The open bathroom is for everybody. It's for men. It's for women. It's for whoever wants to go there. This bathroom is for females because they need safety and they need privacy in those rooms. And I,
And
I
make it
think that,
a one person like locked door,
yeah, I mean,
one at a time. Yeah.
whatever, yeah, whatever they need. I mean, and it's funny enough. I mean, I go out all the time with women, and I'm always done going to the bathroom, and they're still waiting in line, right? And the amount
Yeah.
of times I could say as a man, I've had to stand outside of a women's bathroom door. We could take on a couple more people if we call it open. It's going to be okay. It's no one's going to urinate themselves. We'll be just fine. And if that solves the problem, then let's just solve that problem. But I think there's this drive by a lot of transgendered people to be included in what are called women's spaces because they identify as women. But in reality, when these women's spaces were created, they really meant female spaces. And that's what's happening in sports, in locker rooms, in bathrooms. And so maybe because there was this language shift, there needs to be another. But my
Yeah.
goal by and large through all the conversation is just I see a self-deletion rate. I think it's incredibly
Yeah.
high, right? It's actually, I mean, in researching this, it's higher than slaves during the time of slavery in this country. It's higher than prisoners in this country. It's higher than Jews during the Holocaust, right? So I think we can all open our eyes and say, this is a big problem that needs to be addressed, and we need to find a solution to this. Um, but we're not going to get to that by throwing women under the bus, right? Because the moment it becomes my daughter that I feel like is in some type of jeopardy, then it's to hell with whoever, right? So I think that that's ultimately the way the problem is going to be solved. And I'm sorry I'm taking up a lot
Yeah.
of the bandwidth in this conversation, but feel free to chime in.
No, I think we agree on a lot of this topic, Matt. So I don't know if you want
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any further comments to say on this prompt.
I would just say, do you concede then, or do you agree that transgendered women should not be allowed in women's sports, or do you feel like you're still skeptical on that?
I haven't done the research as far as what your point was. My point was completely a different way. So yeah, the jury's still out, but I at this
Right.
moment I do believe that it should be open.
But given the fact that people having their, again, are having concussive brain injuries, they're having orbital bones broken, they're being not selected and having other people placed before them because of qualifying times and opportunity. Um, that's where I think that the conversation kind of goes in terms of like how do we course correct this whole thing. I brought some
Mhm.
other stats just to keep in mind also. Can you guys still hear me? Sorry, my thing went.
Yeah.
Okay, you can. Great. So, interestingly enough, I think weightlifting is a really cool sport to look at the discrepancies between men and women. It's really interesting. I think this will actually tie into the next conversation, maybe about women in the military as well. Um, it's a great way to look at it because it's almost a perfect study. You take women who train as hard as they can for as long as possible. They're the best in the world. They have the cream of the crop genetics. And we take men with the same disposition, right? Train as hard as they can, nutrition on point, and cream of the crop genetics. Um, Jessica Bittner, arguably one of the best, if not the best, power lifter in the world at 167 pounds. She's able to bench press 231 pounds. She got her a bronze medal. It's a phenomenal bench. 231 pounds is it's incredibly strong for a woman. At 4 pounds lighter, we have Taylor Atwood, who who won in the Olympics, and they were able to bench press 430 pounds, right? So if you imagine that that discrepancy inside a sport, that's a deadly discrepancy, right? That's a discrepancy that if we're talking about a fist fight, a woman will get killed. If we're talking about a volleyball game, a ball will land on someone's head, spike on their head, and they'll maybe get killed, maybe have a concussive brain injury. That's where orbital bones are broken. That's where records are broken. Um, and I just encourage you to research that side of it because maybe we could change your mind on that and really change that. But I'm in the fitness world, over 10 years of experience in really the fitness industry. That's where I see the danger being that a woman gets killed, and then all of a sudden nobody accepts transgendered people because now you killed our
Yeah,
women, right? Which
I
that's
hear
going
you.
to fuel a lot of hatred.
It is. I mean, there's already enough hatred to go around. We don't need any reasons to spread any more. I hear you on that, and I didn't know about that. And thank you for enlightening me on that. And I will check it out. But I do gotta
Awesome.
say, I mean, you see concussions and stuff in the NFL all the time. I mean, I know they're using new technology for new helmets and all this stuff,
Mm.
and trying to change these things. But it happens in men's sports as well. It happens in sports. Period. Not that I like seeing it. I'm not saying it's okay. It's just it does happen in
Oh,
in
absolutely.
men's
It's
sports as well.
absolutely, yeah. It's not uncommon. I have suffered a concussion from playing. I suffered one playing high school basketball. It's incredibly common. And
Yeah.
also having that repeated concussion, we're still learning about what the consequences are of that. I will say this though, it is very, very, very rare in women's volleyball. It is incredibly
Yeah.
rare in women's volleyball because the volleyball itself is very soft. Not incredibly soft, but it's soft enough. Also, there's not a whole lot of force, right? So one of the things you're dealing with, a bone is a bone, a skull is a skull, right? And the more pressure you apply to those bones, the more pressure you apply to, just the tangible physical human body, the more things break, the more things get damaged, right? That's why you'll see in football, for example, concussions are just everybody has them constantly, and in sports like boxing, everyone has them constantly. In
Mhm.
basketball, they're pretty rare. In volleyball, they're very rare. And again, pick your sport. It's interesting even to say sport because how do you even call all these things the same thing? But um, in women's sports, concussions are much less common just because the level of strength that's being inflicted upon the human body by an opposing man is so much more violent than by an opposing woman. So it's an interesting thing to think about. It's a little bit of like an anatomy sort of point. But I feel like we agree on a lot of this. I don't feel like the viewers aren't going to get too excited. I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of
Yeah.
name calling if we keep agreeing like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, come on,
You're
guys,
my best
fight,
friend,
fight,
Aubrey.
fight, 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 fight. No, it's definitely a good conversation though. Interesting either way. I don't know if you guys have any final thoughts on this before we move it on.
I've said my piece.
I think I've said more than my piece, to be honest. I took up too much of the microphone.
All right,
No,
wonderful.
you have good facts. Good facts, Aubrey.
Thank you.
Um, I do have a couple of questions before we move on to the next topic. I suppose now since we kind of have a little more time, we kind of cut this one a little bit short since you guys agree so much. To a certain degree, Aubrey W. Aubrey W. here. Anyways, let's keep it pushing. So I have a couple of questions here. First and foremost, I guess this one would be aimed towards Stephanie. If it were the case that, or rather, do you agree with Aubrey when he says that there are physical differences between men and women um, in sports, especially where men perform in greater amounts or in greater, they perform better than women do in sports, generally speaking?
Yeah, okay, that's a very generally speaking. We've had this conversation, Matt, and you and I and Maddie, and I do not feel. Well, this is more along the front lines thing also, in military. But I do not feel like that women have been given the opportunity. But I guess there is a natural born physicality greater strength in men than there are in women.
Okay, so I would follow up by asking, do you think the top 1% in sports are usually made up majority men or majority women? Or I suppose, I guess that would be the question: majority men or majority women? The top 1% in each sport.
In each, sorry, I was having trouble following what you were saying there. I don't know. I've never done the research. I suppose that could be the case.
I mean, I could speak
Men.
on that.
Yeah, go ahead. Of course.
Yeah, you're the expert here. You're the fitness expert.
I mean, I brought up Jessica Bittner, for example, right? Being 167 pounds, an incredible, incredible talent, right? Again, bronze medal in the bench, gold medal in the squat, world record in the deadlift, right? At her weight. And we're talking a 231-pound bench, bronze medal. Now, I am not an Olympian. I am a regular, I'm stronger than the regular guy, but if I walk into a gym on a Tuesday afternoon, I'll find 4 or 5 guys that are even stronger than me. I can bench press 315 pounds, right? I am not competing at a high level. I am not an impressive species of person. I'm not an impressive person physically. Jessica Bittner is incredibly impressive. And so I don't look at it as, who's better or who's worse, right? She's benching 231 pounds. Someone of her weight competing on the men's side would have to be benching 430 pounds, right? That's the equivalent number. Talking about a difference of, it's almost double. It's 200 pounds more, right? So if you're asking in the top 1% who's great, yes, it's going to be exclusively men. But to say that, even I wouldn't even necessarily put it that way in regards to women. If you're driving a Mustang and I'm driving a Lamborghini, and I get there first, that doesn't mean I'm a better driver, right? It's just that I have a better car, right? And it's not that I want women to participate in sports. I want them to be competitive athletes. I think, you know, like you're saying, we're not getting enough of that energy on the women's side to participate. And so my next question is, well, how do we do that? We have to address the standards where they are, right? If I take a 10-year-old who could bench press 200 pounds, that's phenomenal. No, they're not a 30-year-old man, right? They're not going to be a champion for a 30-year-old man. But can we appreciate where that person is? Can we say, wow, that's the best
Mm-hmm.
you can do given your hardware, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
there's two parts of this. There's hardware and there's software. There's what you have physically, and there's that brain inside your head that keeps you motivated and eating right and sleeping right. And it's incredibly hard. I mean, preparing for bodybuilding, preparing for weightlifting, powerlifting, professional sports, these things are not easy for anybody. And you know what I think it's cool to say is, hey, Jessica Bittner is just as strong as Taylor Atwood. They're both in the top 1% for their gender. Given their hardware, they're both the best. One's driving the Mustang as fast as it can be drove, and the other one's driving the Lamborghini as fast as it can be drove. It's two different races. It's practically two different sports. But we should appreciate both of them because they're both phenomenal athletes.
So
Yeah,
I suppose
there's definitely elite players in. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. Go ahead. You go ahead.
No, I was just saying there's definitely elite athletes in both men and women.
Okay, so
That's it.
just to kind of have a follow-up question to that, if you were to, because your position was we should make sports open so that men and women can both try out for the same teams, for the same sports, and so on and so forth. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
And Aubrey, you too? That's your position?
That we should allow it to be open?
Yeah, like it would be like your worldview in the sense of how we would solve the issues between transgenderism in sports and in women's sports would be just to make it open so anybody can try out for the men's sports and whatnot.
Right, and I would say it should be open on the men's side, but not open on the women's side.
So you think that there still should be a women's division?
Absolutely, there needs to be. I think Jessica Bittner, right? Again, she's a far greater talent than I am. Right, I'm no Jessica Bittner. I'm a strong guy. I can bench press 3 plates, and my squat and deadlift aren't so bad either. I'm a strong guy, and in those terms, I'm way stronger than Jessica Bittner. But she is a much higher level of talent than I am. Right, and so I don't think we should be tossing Jessica Bittners to the curb to make room for average guys like me. I don't think that we should say, oh, well, it's unfortunate you were born a woman. You'll just never compete. We have to have female leagues, right? And this is why I say this is not to be uninclusive of transgendered women, right? They want to compete, they should be able to compete, but they were born male. They need to compete with other people who are born male. So either call it the male league, call it the open league. If we have a problem with the word men's league, we could just change that. We could just say, hey, when you're watching the NFL, you're not watching men's NFL. You're watching the best people to ever play football. On this planet, you're watching the best football players. When you watch the NBA, you're not watching men's basketball. They all happen to be men, but those are the best athletes to compete in the sport in the world. And
So
that's what we should aim to. And
yeah, so I have a question about that. So when it comes to that position, after the hormone replacement therapy that transgender women go through, and this is talking about post transition. So this is after the hormones, after the puberty blockers, if they take that when they're younger, whatever the case may be. This is after the transition, the full transition. Would you then bite the bullet and say that there would probably be little to no transgender women in men's sports, even if we open up the men's leagues?
yeah, so let's take a look at this, right? So when we're speaking about transgender women, just to get the language clear, we're speaking about people who were born male who became female. They would still be at the top of their craft. There isn't, unfortunately, we don't have good medication to change the male body into the female body in a physical sort of sense, right? So what I mean by that is we have drugs, we have estrogen, we have drugs that, estrogen, for example, will help you grow female breasts. They may lower a little bit of muscle tone. It's not tremendously. They might make your bones a little bit weaker, right? People who, again, use estrogen have to worry about that as well, arthritis and osteoporosis, right? So there are changes that happen. Those changes don't make you at the physical level of a woman, though, right? We haven't done a good job of changing that. Why? There's several other parts about a male body that make them really proficient in physical activity. So for one, men have much more type 2 muscle fiber. What type 2 muscle fiber is it's the fiber of it's what gives explosive power, right? So for example, right, if you run a marathon and you're really good at that, what that means is that your muscles do a really good job of absorbing oxygen, recovering quickly, and being able to endure, right? Type 2 muscle fiber is the opposite. Doesn't handle oxygen well. It will burn you out in the sense that, hey, you use your type 2 muscle fiber and you're exhausted. And it's explosive power. So what's some explosive movements? It's jumping, sprinting, punching, kicking, uh, 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 anything that happens in under a second. We're talking about an explosive movement. Um, that doesn't change when you take drugs, right? The fact that we have a higher percentage of our muscle fiber is type 2. There's no drug that I know of that changes that, right? So when you're born male, you're going to have just an unfair advantage regardless of what drug you take. Now that may change. We might have better drugs in the future. And conversely, people who are born female and becoming male who have to take the drugs to do that, one being testosterone, I would say in about 5 years' time, we're going to be having a totally different conversation. In 5 years' time, we're going to be having a conversation of it is completely unfair if we allow women to take these drugs to compete with men because they'll be stronger than the men. I think that there's a good chance, there's a lot of research on the line here coming up that in the next 5 years, that might change.
All right, wait. I'm sorry to interrupt you. We're starting to get to the time limit for this
sorry.
prompt. No, it's all good. We're starting to get to the time limit to this prompt. So I kind of just want to. I don't feel like I got an answer to my question, so I'll try to rephrase it a little bit differently, and then just a quick answer to it, and then we'll move on to the next one. Would you say that regardless of the drugs don't change the physiognomy of the person? They stay being male with the male muscles and everything like that, but it does sort of lower these critical components in a person's body that will let them or allow them to perform at that type of level. Would you say that, considering what you know about sports and about the human body and fitness, would you say that if we were to open the leagues, there would be the same way there's an unfair advantage, maybe not to that degree, but the same way there's an unfair advantage between men and women in the men's side? Do you think that there would be an unfair advantage, maybe small, maybe large, whatever the case? There would be some sort of unfair advantage to the biological men or rather to the cis men. I hate saying that, but either way, cis men versus the trans men.
So at this moment in time, if a male transitions to female, we don't have good enough drugs to make them at the same level of physicality as the average woman.
So you would say there's not like an unfair. There wouldn't be an unfair advantage then.
Oh, it would be. It would be, right? If you're born male and you transition to female and you take all of the drugs prescribed to you, you will still have an unfair advantage.
Over women, yeah, but I'm saying
Over
would a
women.
biological
And women, vice
man,
versa.
but would a biological man who didn't take any of those drugs and they stayed obviously, like, you know, they're not transgender, they stayed normal cis men. Do you think
Would they be at a disadvantage?
Yeah, would they be at an advantage against the trans men who took those drugs and everything like that? Would they be at an advantage?
So biological men versus trans men or trans women?
Trans women. So, you know, men who transitioned into women, they took the drugs and all that. Do you think that biological men who obviously stayed men, do you think that they would have a advantage against trans men or women? Sorry.
Sure. So at this moment in time, biological born women who transition to men will not be successful against people born male, right? They won't be able to compete. They'll still be at a major disadvantage if they make that transition. In 5 or 6 years' time, we'll have to reapproach this conversation because we also have to keep in mind testosterone is a banned substance in almost all of men's professional sports. If you're a female transitioning to male, that is probably the most important substance that you can take, right? So there's an argument to say that they don't qualify just by immediate disqualification. They're using a banned substance. But even using that banned substance, they're not rising to the level of the physicality of men off drugs. That will change in 5 years. In 5 years' time, that won't be the case. In 5 years' time, if you're a born woman and you take the correct drugs, you will be stronger than professional male athletes.
Okay, so just to get kind of get a direct answer, when it comes to cis men versus trans women, there would be no advantage for the cis men against trans women in sports.
Oh, there would be. If you're a cis man, you will have an advantage over trans women. And that's why we don't see trans women competing, right? That's why there are no trans women in the NBA.
So then understanding this, if we were to open the leagues and trans women would only be able to participate in the open leagues that would be, you know, dominated by men, would you say that there would probably be little to no representation of trans women in sports, considering the unfair advantage that cis men would have over them?
It's likely we wouldn't see any representation, but I would say that may change by the time this is enacted, right? So in the next 3 or 4 years, that can very well change. But at the present moment, if we opened up men's leagues to transgendered women, no, we wouldn't. We probably wouldn't see much representation, at least in strength sports, right? But again, it's very possible that, look, like, suppose LeBron James wakes up tomorrow and decides he's a woman, right? He'll still be LeBron James, right? So he can still compete with men in that regard. If Serena Williams wakes up and decides that she's a man, she's not going to be represented at all. She's not going to be able to play with the men. No matter what drug she takes at this moment in time, she won't be able to compete. And furthermore, the drugs she would have to take to be a man, right, to go ahead and affirm her gender, they're banned. They're banned by those leagues anyway in athletics. So, there wouldn't be representation regardless.
All right. Just to kind of get one last question out of the way, Stephanie, this one's for you. When it comes to men and women's sports, if it were the case that men, like if you were to look into this and it would be the case that it's true that men do have an unfair advantage physically to women, would you then bite the bullet and say that trans women should not participate in women's sports?
No. Trans women should be allowed to participate in women's sports.
Even if it would be the case that they would have an unfair advantage physically?
Yes, a lot of women have an unfair advantage because they're stronger, period. I don't understand. Men have an unfair advantage against other men. It doesn't matter.
See, I would like to debate this point because this is where I think is like going to be a main point of contention. I think a lot of people are of the opinion, well, sports are just unfair. And so who cares if someone has a flat major disadvantage when it comes to gender or sex? Because, hey, you know what? Not everybody's 6'7" and can play in the NBA. What you're doing by saying that is eliminating female sports. You're just saying goodbye to women's sports because the moment there's a monetary incentive for someone born male to go ahead and be a champion in a female sport, it's over, right? I can, and this isn't like, I'm not saying this in a braggadocious way,
Mm.
but I've been able to dunk a basketball, for example, since I'm 15-ish years old. There's only been 8 dunks in the WNBA history, right? I could walk onto a WNBA team tomorrow, and I couldn't even play Division I basketball in college.
Regular men are not going to go through the whole transgender process just to be able to play on women's sports to be number one.
I think regular men will do heinous things if there's profit incentives. I think that you'll be shocked about
They
the
have to
level
go
of.
through therapy. They have to go through like that they really want to do this. They're not going to just be like, "Oh, okay, let's give you a vagina today." No,
Well,
they're
look,
not going to.
I think that, I think the 2 things, right? I think that, yes, I understand that the process is extensive, and this might take a few years for a male to do. But I think you're underestimating the lengths that someone will go for a profit incentive. I think when someone would be working a job 9 to 5, making $50,000 a year, and they go, "Oh, if I take the next 2 years in transition, I could be making $1 million playing this professional sport." You're going to find a lot of men who are willing to cheat, and you're going to eliminate female sports. Which, again, if that's what somebody wants to do, I'm totally against that. I think that we need female sports. We need strong women for girls to look up to also, not just strong men.
Yeah. Yes, and they shouldn't be differentiated.
I don't know if we should agree to disagree. I know we went over time on this one.
I think we should agree to disagree.
Yeah, if you guys want to, we're at 35 minutes right now. So we did have a ceiling of 45 minutes. If you guys want to continue with this, if not,
Yeah,
we can just
I'll
move it on to the next topic. Up to you guys.
I'll carry on with this then. If Do you think that it's not possible that someone says, "Hey, I would have been a third-rate athlete as a male, but I'd be a first-rate athlete as a female. I'm going to go ahead and do what's necessary from me, take whatever drugs or do whatever the federation requires for the athletes. I'm going to do this in the hopes of earning millions of dollars." Do you think that men
I don't
won't do that?
I don't think it's impossible. I don't think there would be an overabundance of it. I
Well,
don't, and I mean, I don't think that putting it out there that way would be a smart thing to do. I mean, yeah, I just don't think there would be a lot of people that would do that, that would go through all of that and do that.
I disagree. I think there would be a lot of men that do that. I think that there are a lot of really horrible men. And the more money you attach to a negative thing, right? So the more
Yeah.
you the more you incentivize bad behavior, the more people you're going to have that participate in bad behavior.
Yeah.
And my feeling is just, look, right now, for example, the WNBA, the median salary for the WNBA is something like $75,000 a year. So I don't think there are going to be a whole lot of men who accept getting tomatoes thrown at them, from city to city for 75,000 a year. But
Mhm.
we see contracts being written where now Nike sponsoring a WNBA athlete and they're getting paid millions of dollars. I look at that and I go, really? Because I can name men I've met throughout the course of my life that absolutely would cheat to make money. I mean, we see it in men's sport. We saw it in Deflategate with the football, right? We see it, we see it all. I
Mhm.
mean, as a kid, I was competing at a high level in several sports. I saw all the time kids that were 18 years old lying and saying that they were 15 to win a medal that isn't even worth anything, right? And so if we just take that same characteristic and say, oh, instead of a medal, you're going to get $1 million. Of course they're gonna cheat. I mean, it's
Well,
obvious
that's
that
a
that's what
big
they do.
difference between deflating a football and lying about your age than going through years and years of hormones and therapy and surgery, and that's a huge difference there. But I
I
mean, I see what you're saying, but I just don't think there would be an overflux of it.
I think there already is. I think Leah Thomas was, the situation with her was a perfect example. This was a person that was born male. She ended up winning. Um, she not only that meant that there was an athlete out there that wanted to be in the Olympics, deserved to be in the Olympics, and didn't get a chance to compete. And she took that spotlight away from her, and then she took the gold medal from the person who deserved it. The person who should
Yeah,
have won gold got silver. The person who should have won silver got bronze, all the way down the line. And now now those names are household names. And I'm sure there was a profit incentive to doing that, right? I'm
yeah,
sure that this person has more money than the average person now. I'm sure she has more money than if she would have competed as a man. And garnered no respect. Might not have even gotten the ability to play Division One. And I view that and go, oh, you're going to have people that game it. And let's even suppose that they don't game it. Let's suppose that they are genuinely, they're not just gaming being transgender. What happens when we have Mike Tyson, right? He's Mike Tyson's 15 years old. He's knocking out the number one 18-year-old in the world in 8 seconds, right? That's a stat from Mike Tyson, right? Mike Tyson at age 15 knocks out the best 18-year-old in the world in 8 seconds. What happens if Mike Tyson before then says, I have been a woman my whole life. I've always felt like a woman. I deserve to compete with women. I want to compete with women. What is our recourse when inevitably a woman gets killed, right? I mean, that's not something I'm comfortable with. It was my daughter at a fight of 15-year-old Mike Tyson. What am I doing, right?
You can't
That's
just
not
say
why
he's
we
a woman and then be in women's sports. That's not
I'm
how
not
it works.
yeah,
Or
but what
that's
if
not
he
how
was
it would
what if
work.
he
That's
said
not
he was
how
a
I would work
woman?
it.
But what if he said he was a woman his whole life? The truth of the matter is we don't have the drugs to dial down his masculinity, right? We don't
I
have.
don't know about the drugs. I didn't know that until you brought it up today. You brought a freaking expert on drugs
I'm
and
sorry. I
physical.
know it is a little unfair. I am sorry.
I
I'm in the fitness industry for 10 years, so I
Yeah,
know it's
I
a little
have
bit
no idea
unfair.
about any of that. I honestly don't. And it's very enlightening actually. It's good to know these things. But like I said, my stance was about was a whole the whole other way that about this, the
But
whole other
but I guess
aspect of it.
what Matt's question was. But would you change your mind then? Right, knowing that if
No.
you did the research and you found out that hey, there's a guy who's Michelle Tyson who was born male, transitioned to female at age 7 or 8, 6 years old, right? She was always knew that she was a female, right? Had she done nothing, had she stayed male, she'd go on to be a 15-year-old who knocks out 18-year-olds and the world's best 18-year-old in 8 seconds flat. But she chose to compete in women's sports because she's always been a woman.
Steph? Aubrey, you there? Is this just my Wi-Fi? It might be. Oh, yep, I figured. Sorry, guys. Technical difficulties at this moment in time. Either way, I appreciate you guys for listening, for tuning in. I appreciate it very much. Hopefully, we'll get right back to it in a moment. Either way, hope you guys are enjoying the debate, first ever debate on the CATFIVE Boys podcast. We're getting just about done with this topic, anyways. So I suppose at this point, it's probably I'm not gonna say it's for the best that this happened, but definitely good timing, I guess. So let me get this right back up. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen, here. Again, I apologize for the technical difficulties. If you guys have any sort of future ideas, any sort of future possible debates that you would like to see happen, just let me know what they are and we'll get them ready as soon as possible. Give me one moment. I'm trying to fix something. Sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, we're back.
Oh, there we are.
Okay, I am back. I apologize.
No, it's
No,
okay.
you're all good.
I don't
We
know
just
if the
didn't know if we were
recording was.
recording or what.
No, the recording
It
is
was just starting to get feisty too.
Yeah, the recording is completely fine as far as I'm concerned. Some Wi-Fi issues happened there. I fucking hate my Wi-Fi. Guys, I know I'm sorry for the issues that have been happening pretty recently. I will be getting better Wi-Fi soon. I promise. But for now, we're gonna have to deal with this a little bit. Let me get some stuff started here. I don't know if you guys want to continue the conversation as you were doing it right now, or
Yeah, let's. I think it's
you guys have
spicy enough.
Yeah, you guys have
the listeners will like it.
You guys have 5 more minutes until the 45 minutes are up. So just take those 45 minutes or rather those 5 minutes and go ahead.
I'll take 2.5 minutes. So Michelle Tyson, she said she was a woman from the time she was 4 years old. She grows up in a biologically male body, continues to take drugs to try and transition to becoming a female, right? To becoming as much as womanly as possible. However, again, these drugs don't curtail this as much as we'd like them to. They don't make this person non-male, right? She gets a lot closer to being a woman, but still incredible punching power. Is still going to be a legend, right? And they get to be 15 years old. And in the alternative universe where they never transitioned, this is a person that would have knocked out the best 18-year-old in the world in 8 seconds flat. But because she transitioned, she's not competing with men. She's competing with women. And I have to put my 14-year-old daughter next to a 15-year-old Mike Tyson who may already be among the best in the world at the time. I'm basically saying to my daughter, hey, if you want to compete in boxing, which is a relatively safe, it's a relatively dangerous sport, but is practically safe. If you want to compete in this, it's going to be a death sentence because you're going to be facing a 15-year-old Mike Tyson. My answer is that's where female sports go to die, and I'm not accepting of that. As a person who's been in the fitness industry my whole life, I am not willing to let women's sports die and women athletes physically get hurt, maybe even killed, because of an idea of being inclusive when we could just call the men's league the open league and let Michelle Tyson fight in the open league. That's my stance.
Okay. Well, that's what I'm saying. We need to have an open league.
But we need women's. We need to protect women in women's leagues.
Then we wouldn't have. So the open league is just for trans women and men, basically.
So basically, what Aubrey is saying is that trans women would not be able to participate in women's sports, but they could try out for the open leagues. That would be something you would disagree with? You think that trans women still should be able to participate in women's sports?
I don't disagree with that. Like I said, I haven't done. This is the first time I've heard about it. All of this, the aspect of it. So I don't necessarily disagree with that. I can't say that I do.
Okay, so then
I'll say one thing further. If to the listener at home, if you think that the male body and the female body are identical and we could change them and shift them however we'd like and to make them physically equal, then what is wrong with having an open league? According to the listener, right, if you feel that these bodies are equal, we should see representation of people who are transitioning from from women to men or from men to women. We should see this all over the place in the open league. So it's not disinclusive.
I guess that's a good way to go about it.
Right, but my main goal is I don't want young female athletes to get killed. The male athletes will be fine regardless, right? If their life is on the line, it's because they're facing a prime Mike Tyson. There's nothing we could do about that. That's the sport. But no, I'm not. I am not going to say, here, young, daughter of mine, 14 years old, go and fight this 14-year-old man who can knock out adults and will
that's the
ultimately
sport she
kill
wants
you.
to be in. She's going to face that no matter what. And we don't know they're Mike Tyson until they're Mike Tyson.
She wants to be in a female sport where a female could theoretically win.
Okay.
There is no woman on planet Earth who would ever be able to beat Mike Tyson in a boxing match in Mike Tyson's prime. It's not even a sport at that point. And what you're doing is you're saying that we just shouldn't have female sports.
I'm agreeing with you. I'm saying that that's not a bad stance, that's not a bad way to do it. But if we're going to have open sports, we should have open sports. But if that's an alternative, that's another way to go about it because of your expertise in your area of what you know that I didn't know about, then that's a good fix. That's a good way to go about it.
We're going to come back. You're going to do your own research and just make sure what I'm saying is true. And 3 months we'll come back and we'll talk again. Maybe on your podcast, maybe on Maddie, maybe on mine. We'll see. Somebody.
We'll make it happen if it happens there. You get the facts and Like I said, just to kind of
Yeah.
get a yes or a no at that point, do you think that you would agree with Aubrey on his points if it just so if it turns out to be true what he says, what he's saying?
Yes, I like his fix for that, his alternative.
Okay, so then you would agree with him that trans women should not be able to participate in women's sports if it turns out what he says is true.
I like his fix. Let's just say that.
Okay, alrighty.
You can't try to convert people in real time.
Yeah.
You gotta let it simmer a
No.
little bit. Let them do their own research.
Yeah, no, it's a process. It's a process. They'll definitely she'll definitely do her research and we'll see what happens in the future. But just to kind of move on to the next topic, it was a good conversation, very entertaining, very interesting. Let's move on to the next topic here. We're gonna have the same thing. About 2 minutes. If you guys need an extra minute, we can accommodate that for an opening statement. The prompt is: should society promote gender ideology? Now, this is that women are able to transition into men, all that stuff. Should society promote gender ideology? Since Stephanie went first on the first prompt, Aubrey, you can go first on this one. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was a little bit torn down the middle of this topic when doing some research. In partially, I remember I discussed in the beginning about those stats of self-harm. We want to see that as low as possible. Everybody wants to see that as low as possible, right? Anybody with a heart can look and go, young people are committing self-harm at alarming rates. We need to solve that. Would I promote the ideology? It's a little bit of a tougher question because we've seen that there has been a little bit of a social contagion element and that people are maybe doing this because they've been informed that it was a choice, right? Now, these are things that, again, I can't speak from experience because it never occurred to me in my lifetime that I might want to be a girl, right? It was never presented to me. I never wanted to do it. This was a non-issue growing up for me. And when we're talking about kids, should we promote gender ideology? Well, it's a tough question because if we promote this and people go ahead and say, yeah, maybe I'm one of those people, and those people have a self-deletion rate or contemplating self-deletion at over 50%, I would say we don't need to propagate this idea. But on the alternative, we want to be accepting of people, and so that the people who are going through this aren't self-deleting at the alarming rates that they are. So my stance is we should teach people to be accepting, to be loving, to be kind, to look at other people and understand that they may have struggles and they may have difficulties that we may not personally have. But we also shouldn't say, hey, you can be this. Let's present this idea to you that was never presented before. And let's let some portion of the population suffer through a psychological condition that was initiated by a social contagion factor. So that's where I stand on it. I think that might be 2 minutes, so I'll concede the rest of my time.
That was 10 seconds remaining on that one, so just below the 2 minute mark. Stephanie, now the floor is all yours for your 2 minute opening statement on that one.
Okay. I don't. Gendered ideology shouldn't be a thing. Like it's a weaponized term by the opposing side of it, of people that don't. There's men and women. Period. And I know that there is, but that doesn't mean that that's because of that's what you were born, that's who you are. So it shouldn't be a politicized thing. It shouldn't be something that people can tell you who you are or what you are. And there's not because you feel like that's who you are, but there's scientific facts, that people are born with a mix of the chromosomes and all of that good stuff that's thrown in there. It's not for anybody to say who somebody is. So it shouldn't be a thing. It shouldn't be politicized. It shouldn't be anybody's business who they are and who they want to live their lives as. And it should be left out of everything political. Period.
All right, is that your opening statement then?
That's my statement.
All right, wonderful. We'll open it up to open discussion. Go ahead.
Who starts? Me?
Up whatever you guys want.
Go for it.
If there's any things.
I don't have a whole lot to say outside from what I said in the opening. I
Yeah.
think that I think that the research on this is it's very limited at best, right? A lot of what we're discussing is really popping up in the mainstream over the last few years and not much longer.
Mhm.
The jury is still out on whether or not there is a social contagion element to some of these beliefs about themselves, right? Um, if someone told me, "Hey, um, like I loved basketball as a kid," I wouldn't have had the thought that I wanted to be a professional basketball player if I never played basketball. If nobody ever handed me a basketball and said, "Hey, this is a fun way to pass time." And I think in a similar way, I would be very hesitant. I'd be very careful about what we present in front of kids because if at the tail end of that is going to be a person that is going through psychological distress, I don't want them to suffer from that. And ultimately what we're seeing among that demographic, among young kids, the self-harm rate is only going up. It is not going down. It is scarily going up, and we don't know who to blame. We don't know whether to blame technology or social media or different ideologies or the education system changing or we don't know what to blame. It might be a combination of many things, but we should be very careful about what we present to children just because I don't want to lead my child down a road of hardship where they're going to have psychological distress. Um, and again, I don't have proof one way or the other. I mean, there's going to be someone on the left side that says, hey, we'll only have the same number of transgendered people that we always have, right? So it's just people that are able to comfortably come out now. And there's going to be another side that says, oh, really? There seems to be much more of this than when I was a kid. And the suicide rates, I'm sorry, the self harm rates are also drastically higher than when I was a child. Who do we blame? Um, and so, me as a person that forward thinking about being a parent, my main goal is just protection, right? Keep this person safe. I want them to be. If my kid was transgendered, I would want the people around them to be comfortable with that and for them to be safe in the environment they're in. But I also know, given the self harm rates, I wouldn't wish that condition upon my child. And if there's a social contagion element, we should do our best to avoid that.
What would be the social contagion element that you speak of?
Well, there's some studies saying that if you are friends with someone who is transgendered, you are more likely to be transgendered. And it's interesting
That's
because
ridiculous.
well, there's again, I'm not on the ground sitting at the study, and I can't really tell where it's wrong. It's very hard to do these studies, right? Um, but there is a side that thinks there might be a social contagion. Now, the opposing side will say, well, no, it's not a social contagion. It's people who feel comfortable are just going to be more open about their situation, right? So, for example, if you have a homosexual friend, now you can be openly homosexual as well and have some safety in being with that person socially. That might be the case. I'm agnostic as to what really is going on. But what I can say is that this is not something that was rampant when I was a child. And me personally, I never saw the abuse of these people. I know that they suffered a great deal of abuse. My goal is anti-abuse, right? My goal is not spreading an idea. My goal is, unless that idea is we don't harm anybody, keep our hands to ourselves. If you don't, your mama always said, if you don't have nothing nice to say, don't say nothing, right? I mean that's I like that philosophy, right? I'm not too keen on bringing conversations of gender and sexuality. I mean, to children, I mean, what were we thinking about when we were children? I was trying to get my hands on a pack of Pokemon cards. It's $2, and nobody wanted to give me $2 to buy them, right? I mean, that's what was on my mind at that age. So I don't want to present kids with complex issues, right? I want them to be able to focus on simple things.
I agree. I don't feel like pushing it on kids is the way to go, but pushing it, not pushing it, allowing it to happen is another thing. Um, like I said, it shouldn't be something that other people have a say. So, in one way or the other, if somebody, and I'm not talking about kids, I'm just talking about in general. If people are feel like the other person, they should be the other person. They should be allowed to be the other person, whoever they feel like they are.
I agree
And
with
that's
that.
just how I feel.
I agree with that. I think people,
Yeah.
there's no
The
rule
golden
saying you
rule.
can't. Yeah, look, I mean, at the end of the day, I have a friend that changed their name because they didn't like their name. I mean, that's
Yeah.
And I call them by their new name. That's just they don't like their name. They wanted to change it. That's their right. I look at their driver's license. That's the name it says. I don't see anything wrong with that. We should all be very tolerant and open. And
There
I
you
could say
go.
right now, it's not the goal of me, or anybody listening, or anybody around me, to feel like they're not accepted. Right? If at the end of the day, it's all love. I just
Yeah,
also have
and
a focus
the
on safety.
self-deletion rates that you're talking about is astronomical and ridiculous, and a lot of it comes from all of this not being able to be who you are. It's not accepting to people to be who you are, and that's not right. So that
I 100% agree. And
yeah,
it's funny because I think this is like I think where the center meets politically, right? Whereas we pretty much agree on the diagnosis, and we might have some difference of agreements on the prescription, but we're both able to recognize, hey, self harm rates are alarming. This needs to get changed, and this needs to get fixed.
I
Um,
actually don't think a lot of people think about that or care about that, honestly. You are one of the people that do, apparently. And that's
I,
actually kind of it's a different view of the people that I have talked to that are on the other side of the aisle anyways.
yeah, I mean it's tough to traverse a lot of this, right? Because I think
Yeah.
people aren't generally nuanced, but I think if they sat in front of if they were visualizing the situation, if they were there, right? I mean, look, who wants people to be depressed? Who wants people to think about self harm? Nobody that I know of.
Yeah. Um, I think we agree on this one.
Come on, guys. I need you guys to fight each other. What's going on here?
We did that enough on the last
Yeah.
topic. I think we got into it a little
No,
bit
no,
too
we need
much.
more. We need more.
Yeah.
No, no. But
Now
no,
we're all
it's
kumbaya over here.
yeah, it's an interesting question, and I think Aubrey is a little more liberal on the topic than I think he probably realizes, or maybe he does.
Mhm.
Which I think you guys would probably align a little bit on that. I just had a couple of questions now, since you guys don't really have any disagreements, at least not any big ones to discuss on here. I just have a couple questions for the both of you before we move on to the next thing. First and foremost, you're this is to Aubrey. Are you there?
I'm here.
Okay, yeah. So just to kind of touch on your point here a little bit about the social contagion aspect of it. Do you still believe that there is some sort of social contagion aspect to the transgender movement, I suppose?
I'm really not sure. I'm agnostic to the whole situation. I can visibly see that this has grown exponentially in my lifetime. I don't know what the root cause is, right? If
Would you identify it as a contagion, sort of?
it could possibly be a social contagion. Again, I'm not going to say I know for a fact that this is what's going on. It's too early to tell. There hasn't been good studies on it, and I'm really not a fan of speaking on things that I don't know about. Right? All I could say is like, hey, I see a fire, right? I don't know what caused the fire. I know there's a fire. I know that we probably need some water or some sand to put that out. Now we could speculate, right? We could gather information around and see where this fire might have started. But I don't see the point of preemptively deciding that. And I think that both sides tend to do that, right? Republicans tend to do that. Democrats tend to do that. We all know all of the answer as soon as we see smoke. And the reality is that there hasn't been enough time to really say. So if somebody goes out and says, "Oh, it's proven there is no social contagion element," they're wrong. If someone goes out and says it's proven there's a social contagion element, they're also wrong, right? We don't know yet. The jury is out, right? So I don't know. I mean, you guys are open to discuss this too. I mean, have you guys seen any literature on it or any research? Maybe I'll change my mind here.
I mean, just to kind of, I mean, I'm the moderator, so I'm not gonna go into debating here, but I
Not the way
definitely,
in, right?
I definitely would say that there is a definite social contagion. But just to kind of piggyback off of this notion, if there were to be evidence that were concrete of there being some sort of social contagion that is caused by transgender ideology and the promotion of said ideology, would you then describe transgenderism as a negative for society, considering that the spreading of this ideology you would consider to have contagious effects on society at large? Would you say that being transgender is a negative?
Well, I think it would be very interesting. I mean, it would change my framework by which I view this for sure. Um, again, I don't have any problem with how people dress, or again, I think if a person born male leaves their house dressed as a female and that's something they chose to do, I don't have any problem with that. If they were somehow coerced into doing that, that's obviously wrong, right? Um, again, I just want people to be happy, right? I don't necessarily care about how people dress. I think, to be quite honest, I think we just look at a community and go, hey, the rate for self deletion is tremendously high. We have to bring that down, and we need that community not necessarily to grow, right? We don't need the community of depressed people to be vast. We need that community to be as small as possible, and we need it to be as least depressed as possible. So yeah, if we found out there's a social contagion element to depression, then I'd be anti-depression.
Yeah, so
Again,
I would kind of just ask, if you were to see that there was some sort of correlation between the ideology spreading and transgenderism growing, even if there was some sort of correlation between that and the causation also checked out, would you say that it would be a negative for people to be becoming transgender in that case? I mean, it sounds like if it would make them happy, then it would be fine.
I'm sorry to interrupt here.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. Before you answer that question, being transgender in and of itself is not depressing for people. What's depressing for them, what's making them depressed, is the fact that they're not being allowed to be. They're not being allowed to be who they are. So just being transgender or being gay or being part of the LGBTQ plus community is not in and of itself depressing for people.
see that
I just want to say that.
I would counter that though and say that there are a lot. So here's the thing, right? I do believe an element of what you're saying is true. I think that is not the whole problem. I think it's part of it, right? And I don't know whether it's 50-50, 75-20. I don't know the percentage of the problem, right? But what I can say is that there are different people that throughout history were subjugated to a worse situation who weren't committing self-harm at the same rates, right? And I'm sort of the opinion, hey, it is really, really, really hard to be a transgendered person in our society. It is incredibly difficult.
Exactly.
It is, but it is not as hard as being a Jewish person during the Holocaust. It's not as hard as being a prisoner who essentially is locked up and will never return to society. And
It's
those
getting
groups
that
of
way.
what?
It's getting that way. It's going
I
towards
don't
that.
think it's no, I don't think it's getting that way. I think that if we actually look at World War II and what Jewish people were subjected to during World War II, I don't think it's anywhere close. We're not committing a genocide against transgendered people. We're not putting them in gas chambers. We're not enslaving them and putting them to work. We're not starving them. We're not committing vicious and
Well,
violent
yeah,
acts.
I said it's going towards that. Like they're already starting to
I
do that
don't.
with other people. They're
I,
starting to
I
do that with other people.
I think this is going to go into the Trump is a dictator conversation.
Oh
Maybe we
yeah.
just move it. Maybe we just move it there now. We just take a hop, skip, and a jump, right?
Yeah, because
I have a few more questions
that's where
before
we're
we
at.
get to that topic. I don't know if you guys have any sort of disagreements, just based off of that conversation that you would like to iron out before I go to my next question.
No, I think what the question you asked was brilliant, right? I guess these are my two questions, right? Number one is, do you believe that if everyone was open and accepting of the plight of the transgendered person and we were all loving and caring towards those people, do you think that their self-harm rate would be equal to that of a person who was not transgendered?
Yes.
Okay, that's an interesting point. I don't know if that's correct because I feel as though that half of the issue for a transgendered person is going to be the social element, and the other half is going to be a feeling of body
But if it's
dysmorphia
accepted,
associated. Right, but there's also an element of body dysmorphia, right? There's an element of not
hmm
feeling as though you're in the right body, and I think that that's an added issue, right? No matter what
and
we do
that's what brings
socially, they
them
may still
equal
feel
to the
that.
normal person of as far as how they why they're depressed. There's people depressed for all kinds of reasons,
Right,
so of
but
course there's going to be transgender people that are depressed, but there's going to be way less
I agree with
when
that.
they're
No,
accepted.
I agree with you. I think if they were accepted, it
Yeah.
would be way less. I do agree on that part. but I don't think that it would be as little as a person who was never transgendered, because I think that it's almost like, hey, we have two problems. There's flooding in the basement and the roof is on fire, right? And we can say, okay, well, we can get rid of the flooding in the basement, right? We could make people just very accepting of each other, but the roof is still a little bit on fire here, right? And that's also going to need to be attended to. And I think that the body dysmorphia element of being transgender, that's never going to be eliminated unless we develop medicine that can do that. And I think we're kind of we're closer with one of the sexes than we are with the other. Let's say that. But yeah, I think that even if we solve the whole element of we accept you socially, there is going to be an element of depression attached to the body dysmorphia. Um, and I imagine you agree with that. I don't think that that's necessarily a Republican point or a liberal point. I think that's just a point.
Right. Right. There's still going to be an element of depression, but that's among people, period. There's, like I said, there's depression for all kinds of reasons.
Right, but a person who's not transgendered is not depressed because they have body dysmorphia, right? I mean, that's something that the
But
transgender
they're
community
depressed
is.
for other reasons, is what I'm saying. So there's going to be depression no matter what you
Right,
take
but the
away.
right, but the transgender people, what I'm saying is they'll have all of the regular reasons plus the body dysmorphia, right? Whereas a person who is not transgendered will just have the normal reasons for depression, right?
They can
Um,
have other reasons besides body dysmorphia. I mean, I see what you're saying, but there's still other reasons.
let's put it this way, right? Let's change the conversation from transgender, right? If I have cancer, right, I'm more likely to be depressed,
Hmm.
right? And
And you also could be depressed for another
you're
reason,
right, I
and
could be
maybe not
depressed
body dysmorphia.
100%. I could be depressed for just I have a certain imbalance in my brain, and it's, I don't have enough serotonin or whatever it may be, right? It could be just I'm depressed and I happen to have cancer. But we know that if you have cancer, you're much more likely to be depressed because of what you have to suffer through. And I
Hmm.
I would say that that's why no matter what we do, we could be accepting of people with cancer all we want. They're going to be on average more depressed than people who don't have cancer because they also are
Hmm.
conflicted with cancer. In a similar way that someone with, who is transgender, we can accept them a ton, but they're still going to have to deal with that body dysmorphia, and that's going to be a secondary point of depression, that they're always going
Yes.
to be a little bit more depressed than a person not
That doesn't
having
mean we
that
should get rid
situation.
of transgender people.
Absolutely not. I would never
Okay.
advocate towards getting rid of anybody. I think
Okay.
people are people, man. We gotta spread love.
Yeah, you can't get rid of cancer. You can't get rid of transgenderism. You can't get rid of
True.
these things. They're there.
I'm hopeful about the cancer, but
At this point in time.
yeah, right, right.
Yeah. So
All right.
So we drifted
that's where we're
from Matt's
at,
question
Matt.
now.
Yeah, there definitely was a drift there. Um, just to kind of get back to the topic at hand, I guess I just kind of want to ask a question that kind of centers this whole entire conversation into one solid point that we can kind of, I guess, derive our frameworks from. Stephanie, I'll ask you first. What would you define transgender ideology as?
Spreading the I don't like the word ideology because, like I said, that's a weaponized term. But just spreading the fact that it's there, that it's known, that it's out there. Ideology is something that somebody has an idea about that they spread the word about, basically, I guess.
Okay, and so then the promotion of said ideology, what would that look like in broader society?
Uh, well, I don't know what you mean. Like, I think that it should be okay. Like the promotion, not promoting it as far as you're a kid and saying, "Hey, guess what? Today you can choose to be a man or a woman or a boy or a girl or whatever." No, it's just promoting the fact that it's there and it's okay, that it is something that people go through and that it shouldn't be shunned or shamed.
Yeah, I guess what I would kind of say in order to frame the question a little better is we have ideologies that are kind of anti-drug ideologies where we say, don't do drugs, stay in school, things of that nature, and we push those to kids sometimes as well. Where we, again, we kind of in society we deem drug and drug users and drug abuse as a negative in society, which of course it is, and that's kind of like a demotion of drug use rather than a promotion of drug use. And so in the cases of drug, of course, drugs being illegal, there's if you're dealing drugs, you're going to jail for that. If you're using drugs, you would go to jail for that, depending on the drug, of course, and the amount you have in possession. And then obviously in advertisements and TV and society, we kind of shun the use of drugs, things of that nature. What would you say would be, I guess, the equivalence of promotion of transgender ideologies? Like, would there be more of a representation in TV shows and movies? Would you say that we should be teaching kids about transgenderism, and that it's okay to be trans? If you feel this way, that it's okay to be transgender, so on and so forth. What would a promotion of that ideology look like in broader society?
As far as kids go, I don't see promoting it, but I see making it okay if it's there. I feel like they should be known that made to feel that how they feel is valid and it's okay, but it's not something that you would go around promoting with kids. Does that make sense?
No, not really. Can you elaborate?
Okay, so like I said, just giving the kids feel the way they feel. You shouldn't tell kids how to feel. And if they feel a certain way, or if they have, this body dysmorphia or these feelings of, I don't feel right, I don't feel like me. I don't know how they feel. I've never had the personal experience either. But however they do feel should not be something to be shamed of. They should not be shamed for it. They should not be made to feel ashamed of how they feel. So there's a difference between promoting it and making it okay.
Yeah, so so you wouldn't say we should promote transgender ideology. You would just say that we should normalize it.
Yes.
Okay. So with normalization, obviously there would be some sort of I guess, including it in broader society, like we do, obviously, regular, gender norms and things of this nature. Would you say that a certain aspect of this would be to kind of, I guess, shed light on transgenderism, and that it's okay to be transgender and things of this nature?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like you said with TV shows. You see, in past years and years ago, you see more Black people on TV, and then you see more gay people on TV, and then now if you include transgenders, then it all we all come to realize that we're all here and we're all going to be here. So I think if just people just start with that logic, then we won't have all these problems as far as hating this one group for this reason.
Okay, and so then you would say that there is a distinction between promoting transgender ideology and simply supporting the rights of transgender individuals?
Yes.
Okay, and then you would say that you would follow more in line with the latter rather than the former?
No. Wait, which would you say first? No,
Like,
I
you would say
say
you would fall in line.
normalizing it.
Yeah, you would say you would fall in line more so with the supporting of the rights of transgender individuals
Yeah,
rather than the promotion of it.
correct.
Okay, and so same question to you, Aubrey. What would you define as transgender ideology, and what does it truly mean to promote this said ideology?
I think it's a complicated question, but I would say that a lot of times the ideology is regarded in terms of it's men who are transitioning to women, it's women who are transitioning to men, right? So transgender means. But a lot of the times it could end up being a little bit of a caricature, right? Um, again, right? If you want to be identified as a woman, you're changing your characteristics to resemble that. I don't really know that I want my children, for example, being exposed to, someone coming in, they're dressing as the opposite gender and they're, saying this is acceptable, right? I mean, I want my children to believe, hey, we should treat everybody with kindness. We don't know what other people are going through. We should be nice to everybody. But I also, going back to this social contagion element, if we go ahead and put this in a school and we, when I was a kid, we had DARE, right? Which was just horrible, right? I mean, if anything, we heard DARE and we would just wanted to do more drugs, right? But, if we have that version of this where someone comes in and goes, hey, you never thought of drugs before, but I'm a dorky guy and I'm here to tell you that they're terrible and you shouldn't do them. And we all leave going, I I'd try some drugs maybe. That's terrible, right? And I think there could be a transgender element of that where people come in, they go, you should accept us for who we are, and it could be the opposite effect, right? I think we need to focus less on the groups, right? So we do this beautiful thing in this country where we just every 10 years we'll pick a group that we feel is being slighted, and we'll propagate them to the end of the world and cause a massive debate. Where at the root of it, we should just be, hey, be nice to people, right? You don't hit people, you don't get hit. You don't, mistreat people. You speak to people as they need to be spoken to, as they like to be spoken to, right? Teaching basic manners and good values. It has nothing to do with transgenderism, really. It has to do with just being a decent human being, right? I mean, if I came on here and said, hey guys, I really didn't like my name Aubrey. I feel like it came across in a way that my parents selected it for me, but I never really liked it. Can you guys call me Steve from now on? If you guys go, no, Aubrey, well, you're a dickhead then, right? You're an asshole, right? And there's no real reason to do that. When, to be honest, like the only thing you're weaponizing against me at that point is the fact that you knew me before I decided to change my name. So you're just, hey, I know a detail about you, and it's time to turn that stick into a point and make it a weapon to stab you, right? So no, I don't think people should act like that. Does that mean bringing people into the classroom and say, hey, people, we could all do whatever we want, and here's this concept you've never thought about before, and I want you to think about it at age 6, 7 years old. It's like, no. We should be focused on STEM, science, tech, engineering, and math. That's what my kid will go to school for, right? If they're not teaching some type of value that ends up being in those, it doesn't belong in a classroom, right? It's not an ideology that should be propagated. It should be learn STEM and be nice. That's my ideology, right?
All right. So then,
I
do
don't
you
know.
think in broader society we should normalize, forgetting about kids and schools and things of that nature? Do you think that we should normalize transgender ideology or transgenderism in general, where we say that, it is possible to be transgender and you can transition into the opposite sex, and things of this nature? Do you believe that in society, broadly speaking, we should normalize this phenomenon?
It's so funny, right? But it's such a weird conversation, right? Because we are talking about less than 1% of the population, right? Do I think someone should come into a school and say, "Hey, we should teach people, we need to teach the kids. We brought in this guy, he's got 12 fingers. And he's been getting made fun of, he's been getting abused his whole life for having 12 fingers. And he came to the classroom to tell everybody, "Hey, don't mistreat me because I have 12 fingers. I'm a human like you." I mean, so let's do that then. Let's let the 12 finger guy in. Let's let somebody who's transgendered in. Let's let a person who's in a wheelchair in. Let somebody, let's let everybody in. Everybody has a problem that isn't accepted by their peers for some reason. But this is a classroom, right? We're supposed to be learning math, right? I mean, this is not. Now, can we teach tolerance and teach acceptance and everything else? Yes. Do we, if the end of this is my kid comes home and he goes, "Hey, Dad, I wish I had 12 fingers like that guy that came to class with me. I'm gonna tape 2 pencils to my hand to make myself look like I have 12 fingers." No, you're not doing that.
Yeah,
You take the pencils off,
my
right?
my question was kind of like excluding schools and excluding teaching this to kids. I'm speaking in broader society. Kind of in TV and movies and in kind of the news cycles and kind of what's the word, like the medical field and
Yeah,
medical
right. For
industry.
adults, I mean,
Yeah,
if,
for adults and things like that. Should we make that kind of normalized and promote the idea that transgenderism is a possibility and it's okay and all that type of stuff?
I honestly, yeah, I would say I don't care. I don't care whether they do. I don't care whether they don't. They should put things on TV that people want to watch. If people want to watch that, then they're open to doing that. The broadcasting, they have every right to broadcast whatever they want to do, and people have the right to watch whatever they want to watch. Should they or shouldn't they? What should be on TV is something I want to see, right? And that's it, right? I don't. If we're all adults here, I mean, we're talking about people who are above the age of 18 or above the age of 21. What are we worried we're going to change somebody's mind? And you're an adult. You could change your mind about a whole lot of things and be radicalized in all types of ways. It's not anybody's job to prevent radicalization, right? It's our job to just keep an informed population and again. So I'm neither pro or con in what, if people want to watch that, if it makes people happy to see this on television, then all the power to them. Have a blast. I mean, it's I don't really care whether it gets promoted or not. I mean, my family and me, I'm going to have my own values, and it's not even based on what I see on TV, right? I could watch a documentary about World War II. I'm not going to leave it becoming a Nazi, right? It's I don't really care what people promote. I just want good TV. I want good shows. I want things that are funny and good comedies and good dramas. I just this idea of like we have to worry if they're promoting something to the population. It's like the population is adults. Nobody should care.
So then, I suppose to the prompt itself, should society promote gender ideology? You would kind of be like in the middle towards this. You wouldn't really have a position on it, or
I'm saying no because I don't think what really is happening in society, right? I mean, maybe you guys have your own opinions on this, but my opinion is this: is every 4 years we need to find a new thing that we all disagree about, right? Because the Democrats, will say something, the Republicans will say something, we'll all fall somewhere in the middle, and what'll happen? They'll just continue to rob us blind. They'll raise the taxes. This one gets a free private jet as of the last 5 minutes. This other one is committing some type of felonies, and that's going to get swept under the rug. Who was on it? All of the things that we want to know are going on. Well, that's pushed aside because NBC and Fox News need to have a debate about transgenderism, right? So what we do is we find a scapegoat, we prop them up, and then we only talk about that when we're being robbed blind by our politicians. And so I just view it as like, no, I'm not interested. I don't care, right? I hope everybody is happy. I don't wish anybody to be depressed. I don't wish anybody to commit self-harm. That being said, should we be promoting this ideology? What's going to happen when this is solved, right? When ultimately we get to the same point with homosexuality, right, where we went from not allowing this, not teaching it, not to all of a sudden now it's very open, every accepting, everything else. What happens when we do this with transgenderism? We'll just find another issue. We'll just keep sprouting up issues, and it'll be a smaller and smaller percentage of the population. And in the meantime, what's happening? The media is all controlled, by a much smaller amount of people than you think it is. Every political show you can watch has every show you can watch has some major political bend. And surprisingly, no one's saying anything about the stuff that I'm interested in hearing about. I want to know how we're getting taxed on our income, taxed on sales tax, tax on property tax, tax on getting tolls on the roads. I want to know where all this money is going. Oh, we'll never talk about that, though. That'll never be a divide between the Democrats and Republicans. We'll only talk about the new scapegoat of this generation. I mean,
That's definitely how it goes.
I don't think anybody appreciates that. So if you're asking me, should we promote this? My answer is no, we shouldn't promote it, right? If we can only promote certain things, then yeah, we should promote, where's my money going? That's a good promotion. I like that one.
Yeah, so I think we're probably getting our terms a little bit mixed up here. When I say promote, I mean we should push this in broader society. So for example, and we should accept this in broader society. So for example, the feminist movement in the year, when the suffrage movement was happening, there was a sort of promotion by the suffragettes, and then the demotion, I guess if you would call it, by the anti-suffragettes. So eventually they ended up giving them the right to vote, and feminism succeeded in that regard. And so further on in history, we promoted the idea of women being able to go to work. Women should be in the workforce and things of that nature. We kind of pushed this in movies and shows, and we promoted these ideologies, these ideas. In a similar fashion, in that regard, I don't mean promotion in the sense that let's make this the focal point of what we're talking about. I just mean, should we in society make this a normal thing? We should make this an acceptable thing. And if people feel this way, we should encourage them to seek out transgender solutions like hormone replacement therapy, or I guess top and bottom surgery, things of this nature, transgender cures or solutions in this regard.
Well, I'm very libertarian on this, right? I think, right. So we're 21 plus. We're all 21 plus, right? Should someone transition? I know plenty of guys in the gym that take copious amounts of steroids, tons of steroids, right? That it's just like, how are you not dying? I mean, it's just a ridiculous amount of steroids. Is there a major railing against this? Going, hey, we need anti-steroid conversation. No, there's no conversation. But they're taking the same things that people who are transitioning are taking, and they're taking it to make their body align with what they want it to be like. And so are the people taking steroids. Steroids still bad. It's still not good for your health. Doesn't matter really who takes them.
They are illegal though, right?
They're illegal in some places, but I mean, look, yeah, pot's illegal. I mean, how long would it take me to get pot? I mean, I think I think I can find someone if I walk down the block. I mean, it's I, even steroids, right? I mean, I could order it online to my house. It's the easiest thing in the world to get. You can get it from a friend. You can get it. I mean, it's rampant everywhere. I know people who can even bring it into the country from other countries. And
I mean,
also know doctors
I would
who
kind of
prescribe it just for asking.
sorry to interrupt, but I would kind of just pose that a lot of these things that you're talking about when it comes to weed, when it comes to steroids, when it comes to these different things in society, to a certain degree, it's still kind of frowned upon to use steroids in sports. Obviously, like you mentioned before, it's illegal to use steroids in sports. It is also illegal in broader society to use steroids, although people can still get it, and it's pretty easy to obtain. It's still kind of
It shouldn't be illegal. If you
yeah.
want to do that with your body,
So then your position on that would be like, if we should promote the use of steroids, then your position on that would be yeah, because you feel like they shouldn't be illegal and things of that nature. So then, similarly, when it comes to the issue of transgenderism, when we say promote, we mean things of that nature. So when it comes to, like, law, for example, that we should make it illegal for people to be able to seek out transgender solutions like hormone replacement therapy or top and bottom surgery, things of this nature, or we shouldn't make it illegal. So, when it comes to promotion in that regard, and then also in societally speaking, that it shouldn't be frowned upon to use steroids the same way it shouldn't be frowned upon to get top and bottom surgery, things of this nature. Because to a certain degree in society, I think we can all kind of agree when I make the observation that in society, broadly speaking, it is kind of frowned upon to be transgender, and it is kind of seen as kind of a negative thing to be transgender, broadly speaking, generally speaking. So then, if you were pro promotion of transgender ideology, you would say, okay, it should be seen more positively, and it shouldn't be illegal to receive these surgeries and this therapy and things of that nature. In that regard, promotion wise, legally speaking, societally speaking, would you say that you're in favor or against promotion of transgender ideologies?
Legally, people can do whatever they want. That's legal. I mean, and I think we should be making much more things legal rather than illegal, right? So I'm anti things with kids, right? That's where I draw the line, right? If you take a 15-year-old kid and he goes, "I want steroids," the answer is no, right? If you take a 22-year-old adult and they want steroids, the answer is do whatever you want. It's not my problem, right? I mean, and we could say we're not promoting steroids, for example, but if I go watch Avengers, there's at least 7 characters that are on steroids in real life. And I think the same thing is happening with the transgender community. Am I transgender? Do I want to change the way I dress, the way I look, or change my body? No, I don't. But I don't care if somebody else does. I don't care if they're on TV. This is not my problem, right? I mean, I have my own values. I live my own guidelines. I see Captain. Is it my job to go yell at Captain America because he's on steroids? Right? I mean, this is like I watch it because it's entertaining. I don't watch it because I care about people behind the show or I agree with every aspect of their life. It's we got to not be restrictive in our politics, right? The idea should be less legislation, more freedom, right? We are the freedom place, right? That's what we do. We're America, freedom, right?
So then your
I mean,
position would be mostly like live and let live kind of thing.
yeah, exactly. I mean, and when you say promote, it's an interesting word. Should we promote things? It's like should we put money into people seeing something more? It's like not my money. If you want to do that with your own money, you can promote whatever you want. If you go ahead and you want to promote that we need to save the dolphins, and you want to put your money into doing that, God bless. Go put your money into saving the dolphins. Don't do it with my money.
Okay, so then,
that cause.
the same question I asked Stephanie, there would be a distinction between promotion and supporting the rights of transgender individuals. You would say you're more on the side of supporting the rights of transgender individuals rather than promoting the transgender ideology. Hello?
Did I lose you guys?
No, I can hear you.
Did we lose from Dirt We Grow?
Stephanie,
here.
there? All right, no, I mean, I think everybody's here. Aubrey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
All right, phenomenal. So just a quick answer to the questions. We can move on. We're running out of time here, so let's just a quick answer to that question, and then we'll move on to the next prompt.
Can you just state it again? Sorry, I missed a little bit of it.
No, it's fine. So there would be a distinction between promotion and the promotion of transgender ideology and the supporting of the rights of transgender individuals, would you say that you kind of are more so towards the supporting of the rights of transgender individuals rather than the promotion of the ideology itself?
I think people should be supportive, and if you take your money and want to promote something, that is your choice. Don't promote anything with my money, right? I mean, look, I think a lot of things with my money are great causes, but it's my choice. And so if you're saying, should we promote, should we support? I support everybody. I hope everybody has a happy life. I hope they all do what, I hope they all fall in love with their careers and live easy, blissful lives. As far as supporting, that's what I support. I support everybody having an easier time. What do I promote? It's like, yeah, I hope no dolphins get killed. Don't take my money and to give it to the dolphins, right? I'm not. That's not really what I want. I can choose to do what I want with my own dollars, and so can the corporations, right? So when you watch the news, if they want to put a transgender character on, that's between them and the people that watch. I may or may not watch. I don't know. Depending on if it's funny or if it's good, I may choose to watch or not. I don't really care what people do with their money, right? Promote, don't promote, support, don't support. It's just like, I don't know. I want people to be happy. That's my stance. I don't really care what anybody else does with their money.
Okay, so then support the rights of transgender individuals to like kind of do what they want and allow them to live their lives the way they want, basically.
I mean, look, if I leave my house and somebody else is dressed differently, what does that matter to me? I mean, there's all types of ways people dress that I think is completely ridiculous compared to transgenders. I think people that have nose piercings look really dumb. I think you look like you're trying to resemble a bull. I think it looks fucking stupid, right? Do I say no nose piercings in my society and we should stop promoting that? I don't care what you want to do. Go pierce every part of your body for all I care. I think it looks dumb, but you're free to do that.
Okay, so to a certain degree, or I guess to the degree that you're speaking of, it's just kind of a live and let live kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean, I hope people are happy. Right.
Okay.
I hope the person who has a nose piercing is happy with their choice of getting that. I hope that they don't regret that. I mean, that's all I want is people to be happy, and as long as you're not getting in the way of my happiness, I mean, again, dress however you want, eat however you want, sleep however you want. I'll engage in my own choices, right? I might do those things differently, but the same way I don't want to step on anybody's toes and tell them what to do. Nobody should step on my toes either. If I wake up tomorrow and decide I want to do something, that's my choice. No one has the right or ability to stop me.
Okay.
If it's not harming anybody.
All right. Well, sounds good. I don't know if any one of you guys has any final thoughts on this topic before we move it on.
I think we agree on this one. I think.
Yeah, I think for the last two transgender prompts, you guys have kind of found a lot of common ground here. I'm not liking it, guys. I think we need to fight a little more, guys.
But you know what, though? It's interesting that we agree on all of these things, but politically we also are on opposite sides a little bit.
Yeah, I think to a certain degree, I think in the next prompt we'll kind of explore that a little more. So I think, are you guys willing to go one more prompt and kind of close this out with one more?
Oh yeah, let's do it.
All right, wonderful. So I'll let you guys choose which prompt you'd rather go with. So we have two more left, so you guys can choose between the two. Should women be allowed to fight in the front lines in combat? And the second prompt is Donald Trump a dictator? Which one would you guys rather do?
I like the dictator.
All right, let's go with that then, because
is that okay with you, Aubrey?
Absolutely. I took up so much bandwidth in the beginning that it's your choice now.
All right, wonderful. All right, so
I think it's a different tack here. We're kind of agreeing on this other stuff. So this is kind of a different.
Yeah, this is more so to the political side, what you guys were speaking of right now. Just to kind of see who goes first on the opening statements, let's do another heads or tails here. This time, Aubrey, you choose heads or tails.
Tails never fails.
And yeah, he's right. Tails did not fail this time. So, Aubrey, you can go with your opening statement first. Is Donald Trump a dictator? Go ahead.
Well, first of all, I want to say that if I am right about anything in these conversations, it's that tails never fails. But no, I don't think Trump's a dictator. I think the words have meanings, and he doesn't fit the meaning of that word. When I think of dictators, I think of Stalin is a good one. Hitler is another one. Pot. I mean, there's history doesn't really have a limit on how many dictators there have been. There's been a ton throughout history, but let's go with Hitler. I think he's the most iconic, right? Very clearly a dictator, and I don't know how much time I really have to discuss this, but how did Hitler come to power? Well, he rose to power in an authoritarian sort of sense, and try to kill his opposition. Right? There was sort of that a rebelling, a hostile takeover. Right? None of this happened with Trump. We voted him in, and it did. Again, did Hitler leave power? Well, only when we killed him. Right? He was in power up until we killed him. Donald Trump has not given me any reason to believe that he'll run for a third term. And if he did run for a third term, it's not claiming the election. It's just saying, I want to be on the ballot, which I don't think he should do. I don't think he will do. Regardless, he would still get voted in. If he got voted in, it would be democratically. Um, Dictators don't get voted in democratically. Dictators don't leave democratically. Um, Dictators have a lot of other qualities that I am not a big fan of really tearing down that word and starting to include our political opponents, because it's a real thing. Dictating, being a dictator is a real problem, and we should not disrespect the language.
All right, you yield the rest of your time.
Yeah, sure. I don't even know how much time I had.
You had about 25 seconds left, so.
Yeah, I'll yield it then.
All right, wonderful. So, Stephanie, now it's up for your 2 minutes here.
Okay, I have to take the opposition on this one. He has even told us that he wanted to be a dictator. And the actual definition of it is what he's doing, a desire for absolute power. He's trying to take over Canada, for God's sakes, and other places. A disregard for democratic processes and the rules of the law, the defying Supreme Court orders, and all these other things that he's just doing that disregard the law of the land. He's suppressing opposition. He's trying to tear down media, defund media channels that don't agree with him or don't take his side, or that are spreading the word of the truth or the opposition, let's say. Control information. There you go. That's another one. And kind of cultivating a cult-like following. That's exactly what he's doing. And maybe he's not to the point of Hitler yet, but that's where it's headed. That's what I believe. And with that, I will yield.
Wonderful. That was even less time than Aubrey used. That was 40 seconds left on that clock. So I guess now, since we got the opening statements out of the way, before we get through to the open dialogue, just want to say this is the last prompt that we're going to be doing. So to everybody who's listening up to this point, we appreciate you very much. And hopefully we can close it out pretty strong and have a good, entertaining, and insightful conversation here. Go ahead.
Well, I think it's my turn, right? So I, again, looking at the word dictator, right? I think the most notorious dictator of the 20th century is Adolf Hitler, right? So we'll use him as a prime example. How did Hitler come to power? I mean, that's an amazing question. What were the predecessing factors to him being in power? That's important. Did they vote him in? Was he democratically elected? Was there a democratic republic? Did everybody cast their vote? And hey, Hitler. That's one part of it. But I think a second part of it is like, hey, there's about 6 million Jewish people in between, what Hitler has done and what Trump has done. There's we might say, oh, well, he mentioned taking Canada. He didn't say we're going to send the military in and we're taking Canada and then execute on that action and send over military and start claiming Canada. The prime thing that Donald Trump essentially said was that Canada was ripping us off for long enough, and ripping off not even just us, but the United Nations off for so long, that because we have to go ahead and overextend our military to protect them anyway, why aren't they included in the United States? I mean, Canada's got an amazing deal. They don't contribute anything of their, they contribute less than 2% of their GDP to the military, which is a requirement by UN, right? By the UN, it's that they contribute 2%. They don't even contribute 2%. They contribute less than countries that their GDP is horrible. We contribute our GDP something like 5%. So we go ahead and say it's our job to protect them. It's our job to protect France. It's our job to protect Germany. We're the global protectors. We're just there to protect everybody from everything. That doesn't sound like a dictator to me. If Trump was a dictator, he would go, no, we are taking Canada. You're not Governor Trudeau. You're killed because we shot you, and we're now claiming Canada. And by the way, we could absolutely do that. There's nothing stopping us from doing that. We have the greatest military in the world by leaps and bounds. We could walk over Canada and not even notice. It's like a pebble in our shoe. And we choose not to do that. That's not what a dictator does. Dictator would just say, "Hey, they have resources that are benefit to me. I'll go ahead and take it." And are there similarities between Trump and a dictator? Yes, insofar as that he's an authoritarian figure. He has authority, right? Same way every president has authority, but
You-
maybe a little bit more so because, hey, the population that voted him in was sick of the vacuum that was a Donald Trump shaped vacuum. And so here's my last point. I don't know. I don't want to exceed time too much, but we always look at the dictator. We always look at, hey, Hitler was horrible. That's easy to say. Hitler was horrible. That's a real easy dialogue. Why don't we look at why Hitler was there? How did he get power? How did he end up there? What were the predecessing factors that led to a dictatorship? The left won't talk about that because they left a Donald Trump shaped hole in the country, and that's what we got. I'm not thrilled with Donald Trump. I don't love the guy, right? I mean, I think there's three people on this podcast. I think any one of us might make a better president than he is. But we left a big hole. The big hole was we need some machismo guy to come in and say things like men aren't women, women aren't men. To say things like, hey, we contribute way too much to the wellness of the world when the world doesn't really contribute to the wellness of us. And that's where I'll say he's not a dictator. He's not taking over countries. He's not committing a genocide. He's not trying to stay in power by murdering his opposition, right? These are things that dictators do, and Donald Trump hasn't done one of them. I mean, maybe he's done some things that are authoritarian, but which politician hasn't? Name me a thing that he's doing that another politician hasn't done.
Defunding everything that helps America. What he's doing is, you said he's trying to make. Darn it, I forgot what you said. Something about making other countries unwell, or other countries are making us unwell, or he's making
Well,
us unwell. He's making our country unwell, and and
that's an
he
opinion. I mean, it depends on how you define unwell, right? I mean, what are the
no,
ways he's
it's
making the
not
country
an
worse?
opinion, because what do you mean? He's defunding every system in place to help people. He's defunding healthcare. The he's firing people from the FAA and any other federal position. He's
So
taking
let me
away
understand this. You're on the left.
education.
So
He's he's
you're
taking
on the
away
left, and
funding for media. It's just dumb things that he's worried about. Like you said, what about the money he's spending? He spent what, 90 some thousand dollars on a parade for himself for his birthday, instead of like helping the United States people.
yeah, but
He's defunding us to throw parades.
well, look, I mean, a lot of what he's defunding, what his claim is going to be is that he's defunding the fraudulent elements of it, right? It's
That's
it
his
you
point.
know, it's what does he say? Fraud, corruption, and abuse, right? That's what he's going to claim it is. And maybe you're right. Maybe some maybe we are losing some baby in that bathwater, right? But this is not dictator behavior. Cutting budgets is not something that's new. Every president has cut some type of budget.
Not to this extent. Not to the extent that he is, and not
I,
to
I
the and not getting rid of people just because of the color of their skin and things like that.
I don't
It's
believe he's doing that. I don't think he's getting rid of
Well, he
people
is.
because of the color of his skin. I mean, look, that we'll have to get into that and see whether or not that's the case. Um,
Did you just see all these South African immigrants that came here are going to free funding, free federal funding because they're white?
I don't think anybody should be getting my money. That's and that's I agree with
Well, they
that, right?
are.
I mean, well, look, I agree. I lived in New York when they had tons of migrants come in and emptied out schools and hotels to house them because other states exiled them into New York. Look, I pay taxes in New York. I don't want my tax dollars doing that. I am not the world's charity, right? And at the time I wasn't making as much money and didn't have as much money as I have now. And I again, I'm not the world's charity. And I don't think these are dictator things, right? I mean, we're saying he's defunding some stuff, he's cutting some budgets. I mean, I could point to the left and say, what about defund the police? I mean,
He's
That
demolishing
was
our democracy. That is definitely a
I mean, you feel that way.
dictator
We voted him in. The people voted him in. He won in a landslide. How is that a failure of democracy? That's just
because
democracy
he
didn't turn out the
cheated.
way you liked it to.
No, 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 because he cheated. And also,
How did he
that
cheat?
doesn't make you a dictatorship just because you paid for it. Just because you get voted in
Oh,
doesn't
so
mean
I have a
you're not
question.
a dictator.
You think he cheated, but you think that at the end of the day, how did Kamala Harris become a nominee? Because Biden dropped out.
Because
Nobody
Biden
nobody
seceded.
nobody nominated, but wait, think about this. Nobody nominated Kamala Harris. She wasn't democratically elected. She was selected because she was presumptive after we lost the president, and
Because
we
she was
could have
the
had a
VP.
okay, she was the VP, but at no point in history did we say, because the president bows out, we now put the VP in. What we'd say is if the president is not going to be in, we're supposed to have a Democratic National Convention elect somebody based upon the votes in the preliminaries for the Democratic Party. And they did this with Kamala Harris. They did this with Hillary
Well, it
Clinton.
was a
How
very,
do you think
very
Hillary
short time
Clinton beat
period that we
Bernie
had
Sanders?
there.
What?
It was a very, very short time period that we had there. I guess we didn't have
Yeah,
much of a
because
choice.
the Democratic Party cut it until the last second. He had he could have resigned from his post. He could have
It's
said,
not
"I'm not
our
running"
fault.
2 years ago.
Well, that doesn't have anything to do with Trump being a dictator, honestly.
Well, it does
But
because
he
we
is.
create no, well, it does a little bit because you're claiming that a dictator is someone who steals elections, and I agree with that. But I would say if you look at the two political parties, how did Hillary Clinton get
Well,
nominated? Because
I'm
I was
just
feeling the
saying
burn. I loved Bernie Sanders. I loved Andrew Yang. What happened to them? They were democratically elected, and what happened?
I'm
The super
saying
di-
that sorry. I'm saying that he is not considered a dictator just because of how he got in office.
he didn't get in office in any unethical way. You can argue that the
All I'm saying is that that does not make him not a dictator just because of how he got there. That's all I'm
right,
saying.
but I'm not going to
Whether he
prove a
got there
negative. What makes
voted or
him a
not.
dictator? Right, but what makes him a dictator? What is he? Who is he killed? Who is he? What political opponents have gotten shot and killed? What
No
group of
political
people have
opponents,
been
but not
genocided?
like citizens of the United States, and all the rules of the law that he is just totally disregarding.
Look, I tend to agree with that.
He's
I think that
suppressing
he does step
opposition.
over the. Look, I agree. He steps over the line in a lot of ways, and maybe it's
Yeah,
because he wants power. Maybe it's because he's ignorant. But we have a very robust
both.
democracy. And at the end of the day, I can point you to two leaders. I could point you to Kamala Harris. I could point you to Hillary Clinton. Two people that were not democratically
Two
nominated.
females.
That two females, but neither one of them are the people wanted. Right? There were many females. Listen, I'll
Oh,
be honest. I'd rather
obviously, because
have
they didn't
you.
get voted.
I'd rather have you than Hillary Clinton. I think if you had a fair shot against Hillary Clinton, you would have beat her.
I don't know about that, but thanks.
No, but because at the end of the day, she got nominated because of superdelegates. The real votes were going to Bernie Sanders. He should have won. He got that election robbed from him. And I would have voted for Bernie
Yeah,
Sanders against Trump. I love the guy. But
I love
again,
Bernie Sanders.
he got robbed by Hillary Clinton in a non-democratic way. It was the superdelegates that put Hillary Clinton in sort of she got tons of donations, by the way.
Well,
If
that
we're going
doesn't
to talk
make
about
him
money in
a
politics,
dictator either.
well, look, I all I'm saying is that this is nothing new. People put money into politics. It's nothing new. It's
I,
happened in this country since it's pretty much started.
yeah,
And that doesn't make a dictator because at the end of the day, the people showed up to the polls and they
no,
still voted for who they wanted.
no, and that's what I'm agreeing with you. I'm not saying that that's what makes him a dictator. That's not it. That's not
So
it. That
right. So I
how he
don't think
got
he's a
there is
dictator.
not does not make him a dictator or not.
Right, but so I don't think he's a dictator. So tell me what you think makes him a dictator.
I've his desire for absolute power, his disregard for the processes, his disregard of the laws, his
Well, again,
suppression of
I understand that's
opposition, his controlling of the information, the media. He wants to defund
he
the
doesn't
media just because
control.
they don't agree with him.
But he's not controlling the media. If anything, I would say that the left wing had owned the media for a very long time in this country. And to be quite frank, it's freedom of
That's
speech.
not
He has
true.
the right to talk to whoever he wants to talk to. He's not
Yes, he
wanting to
does,
talk to
and so
certain
do
press is
we.
not being a dictator.
He wants
Right,
to
but
defund the ones that do not agree with him.
that's I don't know what defund really means. I don't think any media should be getting any money from the government. But I would say further, look, I like
He wants
talking to
to
you.
shut
If
them
you
down. He wants to quiet them.
look, I like talking to you, right? And you might at some point I might be a little rude and you might not like talking to me, right? And you
Mm,
have every right to say, you know what, Aubrey, you're a piece of shit. I'm not talking to you. And I have to swallow that. I have to say, all right, she don't want to talk to me. I can't convince her to talk to me. That's life. That doesn't make you
yeah.
a dictator. You're controlling who you speak to. That's your That's your right. Call it God-given or whatever you wanna call it, but that's 100%
Yeah.
your right. Now, I think he has
We have a lot of
authoritarian.
God-given rights that he's trying to take away.
What'd
Go
you say?
ahead,
I'm
sorry.
sorry. No, I missed what you said.
No, we have a lot of God-given rights that he's trying to take away, but go ahead.
Well, I don't know which of those I don't know which of those rights he's trying to take away. I mean, it just came out that he was in favor of of an abortion bill that everybody was shocked on. And furthermore, I mean, most recent reports saying he's looking to lower taxes for everybody. He's looking to give service no tax on tips for service. What
He's been saying that since the beginning. He's not doing that. That's not
he's
happening.
trying. He's trying to do
You
it.
can do all kinds of other things without asking or trying.
Listen,
If you're the fucking president, do it. Make it happen. Stop talking
well,
about it.
we both know that that's not how it works. I mean, because then if
No,
the
it's
president could do
not.
that, he would be a
And he
dictator,
seems
right?
to
If
do
he could
it
just
in other ways that he has no problem.
it's
He seems
things
to
have to pass,
make other
right?
things happen.
The president doesn't have the power to just enact law, right? Things have to pass,
He
right?
doesn't have the power to do a lot of things he's doing, but he's doing it.
Right, but what I'm
If he
saying
can make
in
something happen that he doesn't have the power to make happen, then he can make that happen if he really wants to. He does not really want to.
he, there are things he can do, there are things he can't do, right? There are things he has control over. He has control over the
Mm.
ability to tariff countries. He can do that. Unfortunately, that's one of the powers that he has. He can go ahead and tariff countries. There's nothing stopping him from doing that. I don't agree with the tariffs. I don't think the tariffs are good, but it's his right. Can he go ahead and just point at a political opponent and say, I sentence you to death? No, he can't. And he hasn't, right? Because that's the limits of his power, right? It's the limits of his ability. It's the same thing with what he's trying to put what he's trying to get passed through contracts. When he says we want no tax on tips, he can't enact that. He can't say that's just the law now. He
He's
can't do
not
that. It's
doing
not in
it.
his power.
He's not. Well, let's have this conversation again and when it happens and see how that goes.
It might not happen, but if it doesn't happen, it's not his
It's
fault.
not
If
going
you
to happen.
propose a bill and they shut it down, whose fault is that?
It's not. He can make it. It's not going to happen.
It might
He's not.
not. It might not happen. I'm not saying that I believe it will happen, but all you can do is propose a bill. And my big belief
Yeah.
is people should stop trying to take my money. That's my main political belief. I can act morally all by myself. Nobody needs to take my money and act morally on my behalf. I didn't get one letter from Ukraine as a thank you. They got some of my tax dollars. I didn't get a thank you letter. It was my money. Right? The government only got it because they taxed me. Right? And
Yeah.
maybe that's a cause I would like to support, but I'll support it if it's in my wallet. Right? So my whole point is that what are the things that make somebody a dictator? It's we want to seize control, take control, find enemies, kill enemies, steamroll countries and take their land and take their weapons and blow things up. Right? This is not what we're doing. If you think Trump and
His
Canada
enemies
is
are different from the U.S.'s enemies. From a lot of people in the U.S. are his enemies.
right, but he's not executing anybody, and I don't think Trump and
Okay.
Canada are Hitler and Poland. Right? I think there are two wildly different things that are going on there. We're still all
Yeah,
in the
Canada
UN.
was just an example.
Yeah, but you know what though? I can point to a Poland, right? And that's an easy example. What did he do? He said, I'm coming in, I'm taking Poland. That's a dictator move. I came in, I take it. Oh, you told me not to? I don't give a shit. I took it. That's a dictator move, right? I mean, again, I don't see, I'm a big believer in just words are powerful. And every time we speak
Yeah.
them, they lose a little bit of power, right?
Yeah.
It's
Well,
like,
he definitely has a lot of dictator tendencies, if
he
that's how
has
you wanted to put it.
I'll say he has authoritarian tendencies, but
Yeah.
here's a little thing about Hitler, right? Because like I said before, we all like to look at Hitler and go, "That's an evil guy," and he was. He was maybe the most evil person to ever exist, right? But
Hmm.
what only historians do, and the rest of us don't do, is go, "What was the giant vacuum that led to this?" Right? And in the case of Hitler, you can point to the Treaty of Versailles, right? You can point to the fact that many of the German military or many German men hadn't participated in the military, and they didn't know the extent that they lost World War One. You can argue about the Treaty of Versailles being so punitive to Germany at the time that a retaliation was going to come, and then there was this big vacuum of power, and someone like Hitler got propped up because he wanted to do things. He wanted to militarize. He wanted to be claiming land and doing these things. That was the problem. Hitler was a big problem, and we should eliminate Hitler wherever we see it. But we should also eliminate the big Hitler-shaped hole in society that leads to a Hitler. And that's what the left did with Trump. They created things in such a way that there was a giant Trump-shaped hole, and now we're all going to cry that Trump is here. But what was happening before Trump? We propped up Hillary Clinton in the first election. Who voted for Hillary Clinton? I don't know anybody who voted. I mean, I know people who voted for her in a general election, but everybody I knew in New York and in Florida and New Jersey and Connecticut, everybody, all of my friends were like, "No, this is Bernie Sanders guy. He's great. This is Andrew Yang fellow. He's saying some things we never heard before. He sounds phenomenal." It was only the superdelegates that went ahead and pushed up Hillary. And so what happened? We plugged the person in that nobody wanted, and what do you know? She lost. And now Trump's a dictator? No, we go ahead and plug somebody else we don't like and see what happens. And that's what I'm saying is they left a big Trump-shaped hole. I would have liked to see anybody else other than Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. I think the two of you would have made better candidates than those two. I think the level of conversation we're even having here is probably more intelligent than those elections if you go and rewatch them. I mean, even Joe Biden election, we're sitting there talking for 15 minutes about how good of a golfer we are. They're robbing us hand over fist, and we're talking about who's better at golf at age 80. I mean,
Hmm.
this is, but again, this is the hole that the left gave us. They left a Trump-shaped hole, and now Trump is here, and most people don't really like him, and now we want to call him a dictator. That's not the winning strategy. The winning strategy is to say, no, he's not a dictator. He's got some opinions that we don't agree with. Right? We think we can make the world a better place. We don't need to be using hyperbole to get that done. Right? We need to have a real open and honest conversation. I loved Andrew Yang. Why don't we have Andrew Yang up as the next thing? Why don't we have Bernie Sanders? They speak very reasonably a lot of times. I mean, Bernie Sanders lately he's gotten a little bit nuts, but for the most part, when he was running, yeah, I agreed with everything he said. And then when it came time to vote for Hillary or Trump, the nation was in a big shoulder shrug. But I take the word dictator very seriously, the same way I take other serious words very seriously, right? I mean, half of them I can't say, some of them I can't say on this podcast, but all of those words I take very, very seriously, and I won't falsely attribute it because what happens when a real dictator comes? What happens when the next election we have a real dictator on the ballot, and they really are doing things that like a dictator? They are taking Poland. They are killing people. Oh, then we've already used up the language to describe it for Trump. So I don't like using that word to describe him. I don't think he's Hitler. I think I think he's doing some things that are unpopular. But at the end of the day, if it's putting more money in, if he can lower taxes, he's done his job. So that's
Well, he's not. So he's not doing his job. But
he's trying
I
to.
definitely have. He's not. I
When was the
definitely
last
have.
time you got? So when was the last time you got money from? Or I shouldn't say it like this. When was the last time a recent politician changed something in your life where money came out and got you money in your pocket based on what they did?
I don't know. I get VA money. I get tax-free money. So
Right, but that's not on the ballot, right? You're gonna get your VA money regardless, right? Trump's not taking that
I
away.
hope so.
I don't think so. I think you're good. He loves the veterans. The last time I
So
got
I
money
don't know.
from
I can't answer you.
I remember the last time the government gave me money. I remember the day. It was the day Donald Trump gave me a stimulus check. And it was a beautiful check in the mail. I went to go deposit. It's the first time the government has ever given me money. It was like, wow, I thought the money only flows one direction. I thought it just comes out of my pocket and gets sent to them. I didn't realize it can work the other way. And for me, hey, when money leaves politics, I'm happy. You can buy my vote. My vote can be purchased.
Well,
Give me money and you'll have my vote.
I guess that's not my concern because, like I said, I get government money every month. So,
Yeah, but I'm sure you'd like more.
well, heck yeah, who wouldn't?
There you go.
But I'm
Vote
not
for
going to
who's
get
giving you the
any
money.
because I don't have taxes, so I wouldn't
Well,
get any
yeah.
any way it goes.
That's fair. I mean, look, I'm on the other side of it. I'm paying the taxes. So
Yeah,
my opinion is just like we got to lower the taxes. I got to get more money in my pocket. I'd like to see inflation be controlled, although it's not controlled. They just keep changing the definition of what inflation is to meet so that they don't say it's a
yeah,
fucking 10% rise. But
right.
I'm a economic voter, right? And just the way I view it is just like who's cutting me a check. I only got one check from the government, and it had Donald Trump. His name was on the check, and so
Hmm.
I open it up to the Democrats. If you guys can cut me a $2,000 check, what was it, $1,200 check when he gave it to me, or $1,400? If the Democrats can cut me a $2,000 check, I'll sign my name to that. That's giving power to the people, which is the opposite the
Well,
Democrats
he
do. The
happened to be
Democrats are
president at the
constantly
time
trying
of
to
the
raise
pandemic,
taxes.
so
Well, I mean, look, I don't know if that was gonna, again, I don't know how much that was his fault, if we could really blame him for that, or you know,
No, I'm saying you got that stimulus check because of the pandemic, correct? He happened to be president at that time, so
do you think the Democrats would have given it out?
absolutely.
I've never seen the Democrats never handed me money. I can tell you that right now.
Republicans have never handed me money.
You
I
got
mean,
the
that just
stimulus
happened to
check
be
too,
that
no?
was a pandemic. That was a pandemic thing. That was a one time. That was like a one off. That's
Well,
not
listen,
because the Republicans are generally like a,
yeah, well,
giving
listen,
people.
I'll say this: there doesn't have to be a national tragedy for somebody to hand me money. I'm okay taking it.
No, there doesn't,
I'll
but
even
there
go
is.
further. If they could take less of my money, I'd just be happy. They don't even have to give me money. They could just rob me a little bit less.
Right, right. I agree with that one.
But I
Uh,
don't. Yeah,
yeah, dictator is a strong word, but he's definitely got the tendencies, and he's definitely leaning that way. That's how I feel. That's what it's going towards.
yeah, I don't know.
But
I
I
mean,
don't
look,
think we're gonna agree on any of this
he's
either.
striking right now. He's striking a nuclear deal with Iran. He's looking to denuclearize Iran. Right? The guy has taken 3 steps back from Netanyahu and blowing up, blowing up Palestine. Right? The guy is arguing for other nations to contribute more to their own military. I mean, I don't know what dictator strategy that is. I mean, Hitler was not telling his enemies, yeah, yeah, boost your military. That's what we're telling Canada. We're saying, hey, you have to contribute your
Yeah,
fair share to protection.
I don't think these things that he talks about that he's doing is what he's doing. Or I
When
think he
he
puts
says
a
to
lot of.
Canada, when he says to Canada, you have to raise the amount of your GDP that goes into your military. Why would a dictator choose to say that? If wouldn't a dictator want everybody to have a weak military around him so they could just take over?
Yeah, but he's a dictator of America.
Yeah, but what I'm saying, even a dictator of America, right? A dictator is someone who wants to conquer and wants to conquest and take and own and control and be sole authority. Why would he tell people that
Maybe he's
he was?
leading up to that. I don't know. I don't know the reasons why behind what
Well,
Trump does, but
I'll
I
tell
do
you
know that
because
he is dictatorshipping this country right now.
I don't. I think it's just a feeling. I don't think that that's really necessarily based on what's happening. I think that a dictator will never say you have to contribute more to your military. A dictator will always say you don't need a military, right? That's something they'd say. They'd say, "Oh, you don't have to worry about us. Denuclearize, right? Get rid of your military. You're safe." That's what a dictator would do, and then they'd conquer. They wouldn't say
He's
boost
taking
up your
away rights
military.
of Americans. That's what I'm worried about.
I'm worried about America too, but I think look,
That's what I'm worried about.
I'm worried about them too. I don't think, and don't get me wrong, I don't think everything the guy is doing is right. I can point to a lot of things that I think in the last 6 months, that he's done that are absolutely wrong.
I think sorry to interrupt. I think a good way to kind of to center this a little bit is she just made the claim that Trump is taking away rights from Americans. Just to kind of put a little more center to that, what rights specifically is Trump taking away from American citizens?
Well, we just talked about one of them, the transgender, the whole LGBTQ plus issue. He wants to take away these people. He wants to take rights of American citizens, period, by just deporting them without due process. The due process is a right of every people here in America, whether you're a citizen or not. That's a right that we have. He's taking that away. That's a very
I I
specific one.
I would even go to those two things. I'd say the first thing, the transgender thing. They're not locking up transgender people, right? This is not like he's
No, but he
delegitimizing
wants
it.
to make it illegal. He wants to make it
You
in
can't make how
abortion. You can't.
he's he's not making transgenderism illegal, right? There's no way he can control how people dress when they leave the house, right? That's not something that
That's
could
not transgender, though. Cross-dressing is not transgenderism.
right, but whatever it is that it means to be a transgender is to be transgender. There's no way that a president could control that, right? I can do anything I want with my body and nobody can stop me, right? The question is should we fund certain things? Should certain money go to certain groups? I mean, we have a lot of issues in this country, and there should be a healthy and staunch debate about where money should go. Maybe even just
Yes, but
returning it
there
from where we
isn't.
got it. R What?
Yeah, I said yes, but there isn't.
But
Nobody
again,
gets to weigh in on where it
he's
goes.
well, I agree, but he's not slaughtering the transgendered people, right? He's not
No,
saying
I didn't say he was,
right,
but he has taken away rights.
what rights did he take away of the transgendered people?
Rights to the health care, rights to be able to do it. The funding, even if it's funding, then that's a right because you have to be able to get access to it through
So
funding.
why I guess this is the question then, why should somebody else have to pay for that?
And due process is another one.
But you said he's getting rid of funding, right? Do you think that someone who says, "Hey, listen, Aubrey shouldn't be paying for your surgery," you think that that's a dictatorship? I don't view it that way. I'd say, listen, you do whatever you want with your
No.
body, with your own money. Spend your own money on your own problems. It's not my job to pay for these things.
Yes, but if the doctors cannot perform them,
Well, look,
then they don't have access to it.
if he's telling these doctors you're legally not allowed to perform
Just like
elective
abortion.
surgeries, well, the abortion conversation is a little bit different. And recently he voted on a very pro-abortion bill, which shocked a lot of people. But again, he put up a pro-abortion bill. The idea that, hey, a doctor wants to perform a service and a person wants that service to be performed, no one should step in between that. If he's doing that, then I say he's wrong. Right? The idea of taking away funding, though, I am very pro taking away funding for almost everything. I think, hey, you want to have a surgery, the doctor wants to give you the surgery, you have to pay a price for that surgery, and the doctor has to perform that surgery. When does Aubrey's money get involved in this? Why do I have to pay for this? That's my
You think
question.
he's
Why?
taking away the rights of due process?
Well, the due process is that conversation is an interesting one. I do think he was absolutely wrong for not returning the citizen that he deported. I think it was absolutely wrong. Now,
There's more than one.
right. Well, there was one specifically that they said. I mean, I have to
Yeah,
look into it
I know
more.
what you're talking about.
Maybe I'm missing some of it, but there was one specifically that they said they had to return, and he's chosen not to return that person, and I think he's wrong for doing that. Now, do I think that
That's
the
a right
left
he's
should?
taken away.
Yeah, I think he's wrong for that. I 100% agree. But we also have to look at like the magnitude of the situation and what is happening, right? Because we can unplug one situation from a story and it feels horrible. Yeah, he's just deporting people that he doesn't want to be there. That might be it, but also the guy had tattoos on his hands, and allegedly the tattoos, what they meant, stood for being in a gang. The guy's wife is brutally terrified of the guy, and we should have given him due process. We should have probably put him through a court system, sought that he was there legally. If he was committing crimes, we should have investigated that and arrested him. Fine, but this is in the context of how many people has he deported that rightfully so should have been deported. And again, it's
We
not an
don't
easy
know
thing.
that without due process.
Well, here's an interesting thing. If a million people come into the country, should Aubrey's tax dollars go to doing a full on court case for every single person that shouldn't be there? Should my tax dollars should be endlessly destroyed by a previous administration who just kept an open border? And I don't think that's right. I think the left should be held to some account for letting everybody in. And I don't think that the solution is, oh, well, everybody needs a fair trial. Okay, so then let another 2 million people in. We'll all have no money, and all of the money will go to lawyers and judges and civilians. That's just what we'll do. I'll work for the government. I'll just be a full-time government employee. All my tax dollars
Why?
will go because we keep the borders open. That's not a right approach.
Why is it an issue with the borders? Like I said, he just let in all these South African people, all these South
I don't
African
think
immigrants.
I think people should be let in on a case by
You,
case basis. I'm a big fan of not letting really anybody in.
but
I'm a
they were
big
just
fan.
flooding in here. You
Yeah, I
should
think
see
it's
the
wrong.
video where they're just walking all like a whole group of them.
I think it's 100% wrong. And we had this on the left and the right, right? We had the right at a certain point in time. They brought in a bunch of people, from one country because they thought that those people would vote for on a Republican side, and then the left was letting a bunch of people in from another country because they thought they'd vote on the left side. And while all that's happening, my vote and your vote are shrinking in comparison to these votes, and they're all wrong, right? Nobody should be doing this. I
Right,
agree with you. You shouldn't be letting people in blindly. If that's what he was doing because they're white, then he shouldn't do that. But
right.
I'm
But
also
nobody's
saying that,
talking
like,
about that one. I'm saying no. Everybody is talking about the border,
listen,
the Mexico border, whatever.
I
Nobody's talking
personally,
about letting all these other people in.
I'll be honest, it's not really on my radar because this is not stuff that I really researched. I'm not someone who typically watches the news every day to see the latest updates. I
Hmm.
specifically, because I'm in the financial world, I look at things that are related to finance. So whenever
Hmm.
Jerome Powell opens his mouth, you guys might not even know who that is, but whenever Jerome Powell opens his mouth, I'm very interested. I want to know what's going on. But a lot of the other stuff doesn't really hit my radar, so I can't speak to all of it. But just
Right.
theoretically speaking, right? What do we do if we have a situation where there are millions of people coming in because a political party has said we want them in because we think they'll vote for us? What do we do now? Do we send them all back with due process? And then what do? Every 4 years, we let 1 million people in, we kick 1 million people out. We let 1 million people in, we kick 1 million people out. And all the time to handle all of these cases, Aubrey's paying his tax dollars to do that. I don't think that's an efficient way to run a country. I think we have to come to a conclusion and say, why can't both political parties get up on a podium and say, yes, border security is important. Yes, we don't want people that we don't know entering the country illegally. It's doing a disservice to the people who are trying to come in legally. It's doing a disservice to the people who are here.
Yeah.
It's creating problems where we don't know who is committing crimes or what's happening. It's brewing hatred, and it's brewing racism. It's brewing
Yes.
racism to do that. But we'll never have that dialogue because, again, we're stuck on this one set goes up and goes, oh, I wouldn't trust Donald Trump with the nuclear codes. And Donald Trump goes up and goes, oh, well, you should be in jail. And where's the dialogue? Non-existent.
Yeah.
But the reality is the way I look at it is like, yes, Trump's deporting a lot of people. He's breaking eggs to make a cake here in some regards. We're going to look back in
I don't
history.
think that's okay.
Well, I think, unfortunately, what do you do when, let's say, 1 million people are in a place they shouldn't be in, and you accidentally send out 1,000,005 people? It's really sad for those 5 people, and it's unfortunate that they got caught in the crosshairs. But maybe there's
No.
some blame to the people who let 1 million people in. Maybe they hold some responsibility. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, well, a lot of people have let a lot of people in, not just on the left. And it's not okay. It's not the way to do it. And it's especially for the reasons behind it. But it's not okay either for Trump. The two wrongs don't make a right.
I agree, but it's scale of problems, right? It's almost like let's take this instance, right? If I tell you a story where a guy comes home and yells at his kids really loudly, it's like, yeah, that's not right. You shouldn't do that. If I add a detail, oh yeah, but the kids were doing heroin in the house, yeah, I guess yelling at them is the least you could do if you walked in and your kid's doing heroin. And this is sort of the problem is we we make a singular point and we go, well, he did this one thing we don't like. We have to look at the context, right? What's the context of the country? We voted him in to do the things that he's saying he's going to do.
Is that he's breaking the frickin' laws. And
Well,
we're just not
All right,
going to agree on
guys.
this.
Sorry
Yeah, it's a time,
to interrupt. Yeah, the timer is
No,
up. I don't know if you guys want to go for an extra 10 minutes. We can do that if you guys are interested in doing that. Otherwise, the timer is up for this topic.
Actually, I gotta get back to my kids here.
Oh, okay. All right.
right.
So we'll start wrapping it up then.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys want to do any closing statements. We'll give 2 minutes to each of you on any of the topics that we spoke today to kind of just wrap everything up in a nice bow. We'll do that real quick, and we'll start with you, Stephanie, just to kind of wrap up. Give a closing statement about kind of any or everything that we talked about today.
Okay. Let's see here. We started out with the the first one we had the transgenders in the sports. Aubrey brought up some very good points that I was not aware of, and I didn't have my research on, and I didn't even know about. That was a factor. So, like I said, I still have my stance, but I do believe that his solution could be a good one to have an open sports and women's sports at the same time. Not a bad idea, especially after if I would do some research on the points that he was talking about. And then what do we got? We got the dictatorship. That's something we're definitely not going to agree on. I do believe that he has very, very much dictatorship tendencies, and that the things that he is doing is not right or not the way to go about it. And what was the other thing we talked about? I don't even know. I guess I'll sorry. Yes. Well, yes, we know that all those words are kind of loaded. So the ideology part and the promoting and that's all kind of loaded. So I do believe that it should be open to the person, and it should not be politicized, and it should be something that is made to be okay and not shamed. And that's where I'll end it.
All right, wonderful. So now, Aubrey, if you want to give a closing statement, we start now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think I can change your mind on the transgender women in sports. I think I could do it. I think we'll if we had the full podcast, I think I could get you there. But And I would say, as far as gender ideology, I'm open to my mind being changed about that. Maybe if we talked more, you'd change my mind on that. The Trump thing, I think we probably won't see eye to eye. I think we get two different feeds. I really think is the is kind of the answer, and I think we're looking at different things, right? I mean, I really don't look much at politics except for where it intersects with really my, I would say, expertise, which is just finance and fitness. The rest of it, I honestly don't pay much attention to it. I don't really find much interest in it, to be frank. But I do want to say I had a great time today, and I really appreciate you speaking with me. And I think we kept it. We have some pretty big disagreements, but I think we kept it very civil, considering. I think a little bit we know where we stand, a little bit of disagreements, and but overall I had a great time. I really appreciate you talking with me, and Maddie too. I appreciate you hosting. I think it was a lot of fun. And I hope to be able to do these types of conversations again in the future. But I had a great time. I have nothing, even leaving this conversation with all the things we disagree about, I have nothing bad to say. So
Wonderful.
Yes, I agree. If you were done, sorry. I totally agree. Thank you.
Yeah, wonderful. So I should have asked this. I should have said this before. I guess we'll start with you, Stephanie. Is there anything you would like to promote, plug, or kind of just shout out before we and close off the show?
Yeah, of course. Everybody come check out From Dirt We Grow. You can find it on YouTube, Spotify, Apple, pretty much anywhere you get your podcasts. And yeah, that's about it. From Dirt We Grow.
And Aubrey, same to you.
yeah, so I believe the first episode of my podcast will be released tomorrow, with any bit of luck. There are a couple things that have to happen first, but I should have a released episode tomorrow. So be on the lookout for that. Yeah, and then the only other thing I'll plug is my book. Like I said throughout the conversation, I'm really focused on finance and fitness, and I wrote a book. It's How to Succeed in the Big Box Gym. I would say that's, that crossover is where my book was written. It's how to get someone who's a fitness professional to be making more money, doing better. Really teaches you everything about the business side on how to be successful in that career. If you are a personal trainer or thinking about becoming one, it's a must read. And like I said last episode, I believe it's $10 on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, wherever you can find it. If for whatever reason you're starting out your career and it's hard to put money into these things starting out, totally understand. Send me a Instagram DM on my name, and I will send it to you for free.
All right, wonderful.
That's pretty much it.
Wonderful. Yeah, all those links to everything that they mentioned will be in the description down below this video. So if you guys are interested in any of those things, go check it out. Just to kind of end it off here, thank you guys so much for watching, and thank you Stephanie, and thank you Aubrey for coming onto the show and being willing to have these conversations and willing to debate and kind of just put your ideologies out there. I appreciate it very much. Like Stephanie had echoed, it is very difficult to get these type of things going, and you guys were super professional about it. You guys were super awesome about it, so I appreciate it very much. And I speak on behalf of Maddie as well when I say that.
Thank you so much for having us. Yeah, I had a great time.
Yeah.
Thank you, and thank you also, Stephanie. Thank you very much for participating, and I'm glad we didn't get to name calling. All of our differences aside, I hope your podcast turns out great. For both of you guys, really, I hope it turns out great.
Thank you.
Yeah, I want to echo the same thing to you. I usually get a little passionate, but it doesn't mean that I hate the person I'm talking to. Actually, this was pretty tame for me, I gotta say. But
we'll have to find better topics. We'll have to get more riled up. I'll have to start screaming into the microphone.
It gets a little more heated between me and Stephanie, if anything. Golly.
Yeah, we can go at it. Me and Matt can definitely hit each other's buttons, I think.
Get some spit on the screen.
Congratulations and good luck on your podcast, Aubrey.
Likewise. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I'm definitely interested in. I'm definitely just to kind of echo this to the viewers, to the Cat5 Boys viewers. Hopefully soon. We kind of had talked about this before when Aubrey came on the show, but hopefully soon we'll be on. Just like we were on From Dirt We Grow, we'll hopefully be on Aubrey's show soon as well. We might make that happen. So in some near future, hopefully. But either way, again, the very first iteration of Cat5 Boys debates You guys were awesome. Thank you guys for coming over here and debating each other and being on the show. And to everybody who was watching, everybody who was listening, spending your time with us, spending your time listening to this debate, and investing your view and if you'd like to drop a like on the video and everything, investing your time and energy into the show. I appreciate it very much. Maddie appreciates it very much. From the bottom of our hearts, thank you very much for all the kindness that you share. With that being said, again, thank you so much for watching. Disclaimer, the views expressed on the show by the individual hosts and or guests do not necessarily reflect the views of the Cat5 Boys podcast. Further disclaimer, the topics we speak on are not always super lively. Sometimes they're dark, sometimes they're deep, sometimes they're a little bit sensitive. If that's not your thing, this might not be the show for you. We have clips. If you are interested in getting some of the best bits of the of the show, and you might not be able to catch the whole shows, obviously not all of the best bits, because then what would be the point of the episodes? Make sure to follow us on TikTok and Instagram, where we post short videos of some of the most funny parts or some of the more insightful. We post those on Instagram, again on Instagram, TikTok, and we post them on YouTube. If you're watching on YouTube, we have shorts on YouTube as well. All of those accounts are at Cat5 Boys. Feel free to check those out. We also have, if you would like to be a guest on the show, feel free to DM us on Instagram at Cat5Boys, expressing to us your interest in being on the show. And we would love to have you on. If you maybe disagree with one of my positions, or maybe you disagree with Stephanie here or Aubrey and you would like to debate them one-on-one, just like Aubrey and Stephanie did today, or maybe you disagree with my position that women shouldn't vote, or maybe you disagree with Maddie's position on being a simp. Who knows? The wide variety of things that we talk about during the show. Maybe you just have something fun and cool you want to talk about that's happening in your life. We are more than interested in hearing about that as well. So if you would like to be on the show, DM us on Instagram at Cat5Boys. Again, letting us know that you want to be on the show, a little bit of a bio of yourself, your name, your age, location, whatever the case may be, and we will schedule you to be on as soon as possible. I stream every single Saturday. I try every single Saturday at least to stream. At 6 p.m. Eastern time. I stream on Twitch and on YouTube, but right now I'm just sticking on Twitch because my Wi-Fi is not really agreeing with me, so Twitch is the only thing that's kind of working without overclocking the fuck out of my Wi-Fi. But either way, if you guys want to check out the stream, talk shit on me live or spread some love, either way, I would love to see it either way. Live in the chat, make sure to go check it out. We do TikTok invasions. We go on there, debate people who are doing lives, very R-slurred people, whatever the case may be. We also play some games. We have some fun, play some crosswords, some Wordle. It's a fun time. So if you guys want to go check that out, every Saturday at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I also have a store, just to kind of add on. We sell rosaries here. So I am a Catholic. I'm a devout Catholic. And a part of my devout faith is my devotion to the Blessed Virgin Mary. One of the tools that she provided to us believers is the rosary. So this is just one of the items that we have on the store right now. It is a single decade rosary. We have them in two different materials. We have them in volcanic rock and we have them in wood. So if you guys would like to check that out, we're going to add more stuff in the future. Shirts with the Cat5 Boys logo. We're also going to add we're gonna add some other types of shirts as well, more different varieties of rosaries. So if you guys want to go check that out, go check the store out, and we appreciate every single eye that you put on there. Even if you don't buy anything, it's not necessary. If you guys just check it out and give it a look, see it, that's more than enough, more than appreciated. So we appreciate that very much. Make sure to like, make sure to subscribe, make sure to drop us a 5 stars on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. And with that being said, make sure to drop comments as well. We love the comments. If you want to drop any funny stories, any dating stories, or anything of the sort that you would like for us to talk about during the Reddit portion of the video, or the stream rather, the podcast, we would love to do that. With that being said, we post every single Wednesdays and Fridays. Thank you again so very much for tuning in and for being here with us. And thank you again to Stephanie and Aubrey for your time here and for your participation in the show. And again, with that being said, thank you so much, and God bless you guys. Have a great night. Bye-bye.
You too. Thank you.
Bye.